spent time looking at policy and the policy environment. We explored what works. We explored our frustrations. We have been trying to really piece together this thing and look for opportunities that we can work together. One of the big outcomes of the conversations from day one here has been that the fact that there is need for all of us to double down on our efforts, but to do that in a manner that brings everyone together. So we've had lots and lots of conversations about partnerships and collaboration. And I can't stress this enough, because even this very conversation, this very convening of this series is a product of partnership. And so our plea is that even as you share and, present and speak to each other, we constantly will be looking at those opportunities for partnerships. Because like we said, it won't end here. It's not ending on the East African circuit, right? We want to have a lot more conversations. We want to bring a lot more heads together and really get to learn from each other. Like you're saying, there are different people who are already doing very well as far as looking at the circular economy, but also there's very, very many opportunities for growth. And so that is what we'll be hoping to achieve here through the different sessions that we've curated for you, whether it is through the tea breaks or the sessions that we have outside with the exhibition. The whole point is that you get to really understand what's happening and how you can plug in. Talking of partnerships, I also want to really thank all the partners who've come together to put this conversation together. Takataka Nimali for convening us, Alliance for Science, the East African Business Council, the NSC, KPMG, Qual Industries, and all the other sponsors, partners, and friends of these conversations who have made this possible. We are really grateful of your support. And we are hoping that this will be first of many, many conversations going forward. That every time we call upon you, you'd step up as a thought leader in this space and offer leadership in that. So thank you very much for your support, for your resources, for your time, and really just for being here. Just a quick run through of how today looks like. We'll have two speakers come up on stage to give their remarks in a way of scene setting, but also just sharing their thoughts in the space. Then we'll have a presentation on the context of carbon markets. This will be presented to us by the Nairobi Securities Exchange. After which we'll have an interesting curated panel session that will be looking still on the conversation of carbon, and this will be moderated by Dr. Edward Mungai. After that, we will have we will have a keynote of the day that will be presented by Dr. Jasper Mwenga. All these sessions will afford you an opportunity to ask questions, to raise comments, to compliment, and also to differ with some of the thoughts that will be raised here, because we are saying this is not just about people coming on stage and speaking to you. It's about bringing our minds together and trying to move in a similar manner. Great. So ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, I'd like to bring up our first speaker to address us. And our first speaker for the day is the Executive Director at the Global Compact Network Kenya, Ms. Judy Njino. Karibu sana. Actually, Ms. Judy, please don't come, because these people have refused to clap. We owe you proper clap, so just hold on. Let me set the stage for you right. I know most of you are judging my upper body strength. We actually totally forgot about the podium because we've been having such rich conversations, just speaking to the audience, stepping down and moving around the microphone. So we forgot about the formalities. But ladies and gentlemen, now properly, let's round of applause as we welcome Ms. Judy Njino to speak to us.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Allow me not to stand behind the podium because I doubt you will be seeing me. So really excited to join you all for this conversation, and thank you so much for making time to join us for day 3 of this very interesting conversation. And I trust for those of you who've been here for the last 2 days, it's been worth your while, and that there are a lot of rich insights that we have generated through the conversations we've had this far. So allow me to just give some brief remarks as we are very excited to join forces with Takataka Nimali to co-host this side event in partnership with the Nairobi Securities Exchange, as well as with our very eminent panel of speakers who will be able to share with you opportunities around this space on how we can collaborate more closely to advance environmental protection. So for this session, as you've heard, we are collaborating with Takataka Nimali, and very excited to, of course, work very closely with Mary and a larger partnership where we want to see how we can also, advance knowledge but also action around corporate sustainability through the SME sector, but also players within the circularity economy. So the Global Compact, as the world's largest sustainability initiative that is anchored in the UN, is a call to companies everywhere to align business strategies as well as operations with a set of universal principles. And we codify them under 4 key issue areas touching on human rights, the environment, labor, and anti-corruption. But it's also a call to action to the global business community to come together to advance the Sustainable Development Agenda. So the SDGs, as well as other broader UN goals such as the Paris Climate Agreement, are key to the work that we do in mobilizing private sector commitments, but also action. So globally, we are supporting close to 20,000 participants. Here in Kenya, we have a growing membership pool of 300 signatories that have committed to advance sustainability. Of course, the focus of our discussion today is on environment, which is one of our key pillars, but it also, marries very well with the other issue areas that we call the private sector to advance. So, of course, impacts, both positive and negative on the environment, also have a direct correlation to how people are affected, and also on our governance systems overall. So climate action has and will continue to be a priority agenda for the UN Global Compact. And despite efforts, we know that globally, we are continuing to face the worst effects of a changing climate. And I think the report that has been released most recently by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change indicates that we are actually, continuing to experience the highest level of emissions in our current history. And I think with the current trajectory and the inadequate action from across different sectors, this is continuing to rise. And so key sectors of our economy, such as those in manufacturing, energy, transport, as well as agriculture, are exposed to transition risks arising for demands for changes from different stakeholders, be they regulators, consumers, and the general public. And so we see risks around changes in technologies, markets, that might actually increase business costs, undermine the viability of existing products and services, as well as affect asset values in the long run. So companies in these sectors are also likely to be held liable for their emissions, and we're already seeing this especially with the legal cases that are being brought directly against fossil fuel corporations and utilities in recent years, really demanding for accountability for the damaging effects of their operations to the climate. At the same time, here in Kenya and in Africa and the global south, we need to industrialize, and to achieve this, the expansion of the private sector is necessary. And so the private sector here will require cheaper and cleaner sources of energy, raw materials, large tracts of land, and other resources, human and otherwise. However, as they do this, the cost and impact on the environment must not be lost. And so we see opportunities to develop our economies in a low carbon pathway. And the session today will attempt to delve into these areas and possibly how we can take advantage of them for the protection and regeneration of our environment. So as I conclude, we join the Secretary General's voice and calls to global governments to put in place enabling policies as well as regulatory frameworks that will put a price on carbon while also providing incentives to reduce fossil fuel use and help us all collectively shift to renewable energy, which we think is an essential signal for helping us redirect new investments to clean technologies. So these transformations are the right thing to do, but they are also the smart thing for all of us to do. So as we look forward to the insights that will be shared by our panel, we invite you to tap into the UN Global Compact as a framework that is available to the business community to advance corporate sustainability more broadly, but also to join in efforts to help us really reverse the worst effects of the changing climate. So we look forward to a very engaging morning with you all and really exploring partnerships and opportunities to advance the conversations forward. So I thank you all for your attention.
Great, thank you so much, Madam Gino, for those remarks and for setting the stage for us. I liked how we started off with just looking at the whole landscape of where we were. We looked at the challenges, and now we're now trying to figure out opportunities as we try to leverage, the carbon markets. I'm also aware that there's people and delegates joining us online virtually. So thank you so much for your time. If you want to converse, ask questions, or send your remarks, remember you can use our hashtag, that is Waste is Wealth. Great. Still on the conversation of how to make sense of the carbon markets, I'd like to bring up our second speaker this morning. That would be Mr. Joseph Sunday. Joseph Sunday is the Director for Corporate Affairs and Communications and Sustainability at Unilever East Africa. Karibu sana.
Good morning, everyone. Bonnie, I think mine is about sustainability and business, looking at the perspective of corporates in terms of what sustainability means, okay? My name is Joseph Sunday, as he said, and my remarks will be very brief, actually conversational, okay? And I want to open with a couple of beliefs, yeah? The first belief I want to throw to you is that if you have sufficient knowledge, anybody can run a business. Sufficient knowledge to run a business, if you have that, anybody can run a business. If you have experience, you can run a viable business. Okay? But it will take serious commitment to run a sustainable business. Okay? That is the ladder I want us to climb. Knowledge will run you a business. Experience will give you good business. But commitment is what it will take to run a sustainable business, because it's beyond what is in the P&L. I believe no single business can thrive without a healthy planet and society. And that's why I am talking about commitment. I also believe that it is not enough to be a thought leader. We are now moving into an era of action leadership. It's not enough to commit. You need to go one step to demonstrate action beyond commitment. Okay? So it's okay if corporates will say we've signed up to be part of the Global Compact with Judy's team. But what are we bringing to the table in terms of real action that they can measure as we add value to the conversation? At Unilever, for instance, in order to deliver on some of our ambitious sustainability targets through what we call a strategic roadmap, because we have a belief wheel in Unilever that has 3 components. One says that people with purpose thrive. Brands with purpose grow. And companies with purpose last. Can I say it again? People with purpose thrive. Brands with purpose grow. And companies with purpose last. We don't just give products, but products must have a meaning to how they engage and interact with consumers. Because if, for instance, we are selling soap, any competition can sell soap. Lifebuoy is an example of our brand. But during COVID, we stepped out of the comfort zone to say, if you need to wash your hands, use any soap. Please use any soap. Okay? It doesn't have to be Lifebuoy. For Lifebuoy to have wanted to reach at least 1.2 billion consumers across the world in terms of safe hygiene, it had to delink itself from the brand to what it believes. Yeah, so from that lens of Lifebuoy saying to what do we need to create in the society. Now, how do we create this value in a business model? And before we even create those values, how do we get to understand the issues that we need to ring fence or double click on? When we are serving our consumers and stakeholders, we need to look at what are those key issues they deeply care about. There are many issues in sustainability front, but climate change, as has been spoken about, plastic pollution, inequality are ringing at the top of concerns for stakeholders today as we speak. So multi-stakeholder business model must recognize the importance of those relationships and resources that we depend on as a business across our value chain, from the ingredients we source to make our products across 190 countries that we serve. Each single day, Unilever's products reach at least 3.5 billion consumers. Now, that is sheer scale. We could decide to remain as a strong FMCG or decide to turn that strength into force for good. Okay? And that's where Unilever comes in. So I usually feel oftentimes many businesses consider planet and society as an add-on. Yeah? Where they think accountability can actually be reduced to responsibility, either through these labels you hear, CSI, CSR, philanthropy. But let me tell you, if sustainability is not at the core of your business P&L, you're not there yet. If you're looking to get the surplus after you've done your P&L, yeah, that investment that you're making at the end of your P&L and saying, this is what we have left to do CSR, that's not sustainability. That is CSR or CSI. Sustainability must sit at the core of your PL strategy. It is future-proofing your business. It's not what you have left after you've banked the money. Okay? In fact, even from a reporting perspective, if you are what you call sustainability reporting has all the other bits, but is missing the hard targets around sustainable value chains and responsible manufacturing systems and how you are tracking your commitments and KPIs, then you're not there yet. It's easy to talk about people. It's easy to talk about consumers. It's easy to talk about customers. But if you don't talk about the planet, if you don't talk about how you're future-proofing your manufacturing systems and creating an environment where everybody will thrive, which is what I call measuring impact on communities and the environment, then we are not there yet. So allow me to also say that sometimes we feel we are overwhelmed by too many commitments regarding what is this that defines sustainability. Is it climate action? Is it a waste-free world? Is it positive nutrition? Is it health and well-being? Is it equity, diversity, and inclusion? You cannot start with everything. Just zero down on what your consumers and customers care most about, and then prioritize going downwards. So I'll give you an example. How do we win at Unilever, for instance? Out of all those, and we don't say that others are off the docket, no. 4 key things we care about: driving climate action to reach net zero, reducing plastic as part of the waste-free world, regenerating nature and agriculture, and raising living standards in our value chain. They ring at the top of all the others I've mentioned. And I'll give you an example sometimes how we use our commercial experience to try and make a difference in our ecosystem. In Kenya, for example, we have a program called Jaza Duka, which just means, for those who don't understand Kiswahili, is fill up your stores. What does Jaza Duka mean? There are many unbanked people within our population. Not everybody can get access to financial support through the banking system. Now, what we decided to do is to say, if you are a retailer who cannot get access to finance by virtue of either not being in the formal system, you don't have collaterals, or they don't have data to know what is your risk, how can we create partnership with the financial institutions to give you access to capital or finance? So through MasterCard and KCB, we have empowered close to 12,000 unbanked retailers with access to finance, so that they are able to stock what they can sell, not what they can afford. So sometimes you have a retail duka or kiosk, you don't have capital to expand, so you can only stock what you can afford per day. What we are saying is, if you have this huge demand, why can't you stock what you can actually sell as opposed to only what you can afford? So that's an example of how do you then bring financial inclusion to that ecosystem, and how does that raise their living standards. Now let me move to what we call the waste-free world. And in Unilever we call it rethinking our plastic packaging. We have 4 goals, and these goals were articulated way back in 2017. One is we plan to have the amount of virgin plastic that we use in our plastic packaging system, okay? Second, we want to collect and process more plastic packaging than what we sell. In other words, we want to be plastic positive. Check what you push into the system and what you collect back through partners. Third, we want to ensure that at least 100% of our plastic packaging is designed to be recyclable, reusable, or compostable. All our packaging, and by the way, we have about 400 brands across the globe. As I said, that we serve 3.5 billion consumers per day. 400 brands. That means you have massive touch points. Of course, of this, we have plastic packaging as well. So if we make sure that 100%, which is the total footprint of our plastic packaging, is designed to be reusable, recyclable, or compostable, that becomes part of our mantra. And the mantra is also defined as, if we are to make any progress, we want to use less plastic, better plastic, or no plastic. It's not easy because you have rigid plastics and flexibles. It's a journey, okay? recycling rigid plastics is much easier than flex because of the multiple layers. So the science that goes into recycling flexes is not as easy as rigid, but there's a journey towards recycling that as well. So through Mr. Green, Unilever in 2017 identified a strategic partner called Mr. Green Africa, where we invested just a modest amount of money for him to be able to start collecting plastics from the landfills in Kenya, process it, and bring it back to our ecosystem as Unilever. Today, we are one of the companies that has been able to close the circular loop in at least 3 of our brands. So if you go to the shelves and pick Sunlight Scorer, for instance, or Vim, probably know Vim, or Domestos, you'll see a label at the top saying 100% recycled, meaning we collect it here, it's processed here, and the pellets that come from it is pumped back to our third party who makes packaging for us, and it's brought back to Unilever, and we refill the product. Okay, so we've closed the loop on those. Today is able to have a capacity of processing about 240,000 metric tons per month from an initial 60,000 about in 2017. So this is what I call action leadership. It's not only what you commit to do, but also what you are actually doing. Let's go to equity and diversity and inclusion, okay? Because all these are tenets of what will map sustainability. Now, if you look at the gender gap report of 2021, it says that at least at the current rate, women will have to wait about 135 years to come close to the overall gender gap that exists. 135 years. So it's insane, frankly speaking. So we have committed as Unilever globally to spend at least 2 billion annually with diverse businesses by 2025. In Kenya, it's about 600 million. And we are making that journey as a reality. We have launched the other day, saw it on media, called the Emerge Accelerator Program, where we are calling women-led businesses to come to us. We will give you capacity building. We'll connect you with access to financial partners. We'll help you to build scale so that you can become ready to supply to Unilever, okay? And we are saying we are giving you affirmative action. Too many men. We want to now give women the opportunity, and we are accelerating this program as we speak. The spend that we have earmarked, as I said, is about 600 million by 2025. And I think as we speak now, we are on course at 4% of that. So in closing, what I want to say is, if you put, basically there are usually 4 risks that I call out in business. You put at the core of your strategy, financial, legal, operational, or reputational risk mitigation, you probably be having a fairly good business, okay? If you take care of operational risk, financial risk, legal risk, or reputational risk, you have a fairly good business. Now, if you map your business critical stakeholders, usually there are about 7 for most private partners, private sector partners. So there's the investors, because you need to account to the shareholders. There's the employees. There are the government. There's the customer, government or regulators, customers, consumers. There's community, and media. So when you keep these stakeholders happy, you have a viable business, because that's what corporate affairs does. Make sure that all your stakeholders at any given time are happy. But my offer today is you need to extrapolate into the future how you build a healthy relationship with this ecosystem of your stakeholders, including planet and society as a critical stakeholder. If you do that, then you'll have a sustainable business. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sande, for that very well articulated, picture of what it really means to be truly sustainable. I think my biggest takeaway is the fact that, yeah, that thing is heavy. See, it wasn't just me. That thing is actually very heavy. You know, the thing that, you know, this whole conversation about sustainability, it's not a favor you're doing to the world. It's not something good you're doing to make you feel good. It should actually be at the core of your business. And I think that's a big realization, not just for the big multinationals like Unilever, but also for entrepreneurs who are investing in these spaces. That they need to have deliberate steps, you know, at incorporating some of these thoughts in the things that you do. Excellent. Thank you so much for that. So now we'll try and shift gears slightly and just delve into this conversation of what the carbon markets are, a fairly complex subject for many, but I'm sure in this room, I mean, all of you guys are okay with that, you know. It's just a few of us who couldn't make PhD by 24 who will still struggle with this. But this will be a presentation made by the Nairobi Securities Exchange. And I like what Sunday said about, it's not just about being thought leaders, it's action leaders. And some of the proposals that will be made here and are being made here, I'm glad to know that there's already work that is happening in there. So it's not wishful thinking or gazing into the future. It's actually just pointing out the things that are happening. Ladies and gentlemen, to present this case on the context for carbon markets, I'd like to bring up Irungu Wagema. Irungu Wagema is the Chief Officer for Strategy, Risk and Compliance at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Boni. Yeah, it's a pleasure and a very good morning and warm welcome to everyone. All right, I trust that you are all well. My name is Irungu Wagema, as you've heard. However, today I'm standing in for my Chief Executive, Mr. Geoffrey Odundo. He couldn't make it today. There was an impromptu meeting at work. But what we've done is that he's been able to share part of what he wanted to send across, and we'll be able to share that with you. So we are really grateful, even to the organizers, to GRI, Gino. It's always a pleasure, and everybody, our previous presenters. I think it has really been something that is awesome, and that we really need to all look at it more keenly. So I'll be using a presentation that will be showing, but just even as we start, for us at the NSC, I really would like to take off from where he left and the challenge that he has given us, and that is action. We have to be action oriented. It can't just be talk. I think we've had too much talk as far as sustainability is concerned, but it's time for action. It's time for us to embed and even change the culture in terms of what we are doing, especially our day-to-day decisions and choices. So they have to be driven by ESG values. So even for us within the Nairobi Securities Exchange, of course we take what we preach and we are preaching water. Anyway, so of course we are preaching sustainability, and even by way of an introduction, NSE is a securities exchange, and our vision is to be a leading securities exchange in Africa with a global reach. That means that we want to be there anytime anyone thinks about raising capital. You think NSC. That's simply our vision. You see, anytime you think about investing, it's not Mogoda, land. You know, Kenyans are, they like land, Maguta, and all that. But we want to think about how can we utilize the capital markets. And we are very at the forefront of different initiatives ourselves, and even embedded within our strategy. Our core values, what drives us. One of our key core values is actually sustainability. So we are not just putting it out there as something that we would want to aspire to. It's what we are living. And I'm so glad one of my lecturers at Strathmore Business School and also a consultant is here with us. Yeah, Dr. Edward, yes, Dr. Edward, yeah, he taught us on sustainability, and not only that, they've participated with us at the NSC, in fact, even in having an SDG challenge that is based on sustainability, so that even there's that awareness being driven at the employee level. So for us and for today, we'll be looking at, now that the slides are here, we'll be just looking at setting the context for carbon markets, and the context is really based on ESG. First of all, there has to be the culture in place before we can move, we can be able to progress. So I'll quickly share, and this is what I was saying. Our vision, of course, is to be a leading securities and investment partner of choice. And that's what we were saying. If anybody needs investment, and I'm talking to us now, we've said it's about action. I would have already told you, if you don't have an account to start trading, by now you should be opening one, because we believe in action, you know. Yeah, so of course we want to be the partner of choice, even for providing efficient capital. And one of the key themes that are there right now is actually sustainable capital that we are looking at. And of course our mission is to link capital to opportunity. That's why the two markets that we have, one is the capital raising. If you want to raise capital for your business as an entrepreneur, even in waste management and whichever other sector you could be, then you can be able to work together with us. If you are looking for an opportunity, I can see some people are dressed in green today. Yeah, maybe you're already saying that you are green. Yeah, so for those people who are green investors, you can actually come in and also get green opportunities, because we offer that to you. So, and then our first pillar, we have 4 pillars in our strategy, and one of them is sustainable business growth. So we are also firm believers in the triple P. It's not just about the profit, but also the planet and also the people. So it is all inclusive. So in our pillars, one is sustainable business growth, the other one is operational excellence, because we can leverage on technology and innovation to be able to drive our business. And even when you talk about sustainability, some of these things are going to be driven through technology. Recently we launched the first, not recently, in 2017, we launched the first fully mobile traded bond. That was Akiba in the world. And that means that you could actually go through the entire investment in the capital markets, buy government bonds through a mobile phone. There's no paper. You know, before you'd go to a broker and then they give you some forms to fill, go to CDSC and all that. But we're just saying that you already have an account, maybe with Safaricom and all that. You can already start trading in the market, and we are pushing in that area as far as operational excellence is concerned. We also are firm believers in strategic partnerships. We are partners with the UN Global Compact, also with GRI and many other partners in this space, whereby we are actually working together. There's an African adage that says that if you want to go fast, you walk alone. But if you want to go far, you have to work with someone. So as NSE, we are working with different partners, and we welcome you even as strategic partners on our journey, even as we go towards being a market that is going to offer value. And then of course we care about people, and that's why we also both our people and even the different suppliers and everybody that we are working with. So those are our main pillars in our strategy, and our core values include the integrity, excellence, teamwork, sustainability, and accountability. So when companies come and list, yeah, that's also a form of being accountable. And we have even a manual where you also speak about even sustainability, even as part of the things that we have. So those are our pillars as the NSE and our strategic direction in our 2020-2024 strategy. In terms of the state of the capital markets right now, I must speak about it. It's just to show and demonstrate that the market is actually a significant player in the economy. And when we talk about the economy currently is around 13, as of 2023, 13 trillion. And we can see that the two markets that we have the bonds market, where we are able to raise fixed income. I won't get too technical, where you want to take fixed income. So this is like the green bonds. You want to be able to, and also the government bonds, all the infrastructure bonds and all that. So that accounts for 3.7 trillion. And then the equity market, of course, we've had a downturn this particular time. I think the foreigners, because of the currency situation, they have been selling. So it has really shrunk. It has come to 1.7. But if you combine the two, that is for 43% of the GDP. So that we are actually in control of. So that is a significant amount of influence that we wield in the economy. And as also we go green, I believe one of the trends that we can be able to affect this country is actually through the economy. So if the economy also moves in that direction, then we can all move in the same, even at the smaller levels in terms of individual businesses, and even to the big corporates and everybody within the country. And I'd just like to reiterate something, even as we reflect on that number, is what the president said. He said in the last COP meeting in Egypt that carbon credit is going to be like the third foreign exchange earner for this country, and he's committed to that. More recently, we attended the Kusi Ideas Festival by one of our listed companies, that is Nation Media. I believe some of you may have participated as well, and it was held at Karura Forest. You know, you have to make a statement with everything that you're doing, so that it is not just something that we are all talking about. So we really did commend Nation Media. We were with them some time back, and even I think there's something interesting happening about their share price, but I'll allow you to discover what is happening. But one of the key things that happened in that Kusi Ideas Festival, for those who attended, it is a Pan-African festival, was actually the going green. That was the key message. And as we participated, for me, what really impacted me the most was a speech by, I don't know if she was 9-year-old or a 12-year-old girl, who said that for her birthday, what she was going to do is to plant trees. You see, so we have to start resonating in the small things. And that's a 9-year-old, and she asked, I don't want gifts for my birthday. If you want to give me a gift, plant a tree. And I think that's where it all begins. It begins at home. The family is a unit of society. So if we can embed such values even at the family level, then we are going to see the change taking place. So you can imagine that 9-year-old or 12-year-old when she becomes, and they are the majority. The people who are when you look at the demographics of Kenya, majority are really the young people. So that is the future. If we can have young people already thinking in that direction, I'm telling you, we will not only be speaking about these things about green, but we will be a leader. And my small message to us, even as I go through the carbon markets, and this is really the thrust that I would like us to have, is that Kenya, we have to put away the second-class mentality. Let me repeat that again. You know, sometimes you can be somewhere, you have grown up in a society, and then you never realize something is there subconsciously, and that's a second-class mentality. You know, sometimes it's easy. We were just discussing last evening with someone, if say there was a Nigerian here, you know, Oga has come here. So if Oga was here, you definitely know that Oga is here. You know, Oga is Nigerian. Okay, Kenyans are fond of Nigerians, and if there's someone from Nigeria, we celebrate you. But there's something that you learn about identity and having a strong identity. And this is still pertinent in our discussion. Yeah, even about sustainability. And one of the things is that even if they may not know so much, a Nigerian will just know them. I remember there was once I was going to Lagos on a flight, and it was through Ethiopia. So by the time we reached Addis Ababa, Bole International Airport, so we were told to queue on a particular place. So the Ethiopians called us. They told us, everybody, all flight ET, 306 to Lagos, come and line here. So we went there. So as we were on the queue, and then he said, no, go back. And then you come back one after the other. Then I just had, I don't know how to pronounce this. How do you pronounce that? He said, nonsense. Hey, how can you call us and tell us to come back? You know, so I was like, okay, I was like, yeah, surely I'm going to Nigeria, because that's what I expected. Yeah, okay, I'm not just talking about, okay, there's that word, maybe for international audience and those who are on Zoom or online, it is that, I don't know how to say it, you know, it's maybe something because of eating pepper. They have already known how to say that, but here we don't take too much pepper. So pepper is actually chili. Yeah, so what I was just saying is that there's a way we have to come up with a strong identity as Kenyans if we are to make a mark in the world. We can't make a mark if we are actually going to just be playing second fiddle. You know, from when we grow up, we are taught not to make noise, you know, just to be well behaved and all that. It's only recently when we make noise, mandamano here and there, you know. Yeah, but I know many Kenyans were really like, hey, that doesn't affect me. So most of them were okay until Finance Bill 2013, so 2023. So everybody said, even me, because those guys who are earning over 500, they were like, even you are affected. So now you have to be vocal about it, you know. Yeah, and it's that culture whereby we are not afraid to speak. You know, let us talk. Let us have a strong enough identity to address the issues that are there. You know, if something is wrong, someone has polluted the environment, we tell them, no, that is wrong. You understand? But as long as we are Kenyans on Twitter, you know, Kenyans on Twitter is because nobody is seeing you. That's our defense forces. You know, they will tell you, they can tell CNN, who do they think they are? But there's nobody over there. You know, it's Kenyans on Twitter. You see, so we need to come out and be bold enough and start talking about these issues. And that's how society is going to change. You know, it's those conversations that are actually able to shape the culture of our people. Yeah, Kenyan, we have a rich heritage, and of course a lot is through storytelling and even just the norms that we learn at the family or the home front. So we are saying that even this conversation about driving sustainability, it has to begin at home. It has to begin from even when you get to the office, what you're doing and all that. And that's why we are saying, even as we are thinking about, and I like maybe some of the principles, not everything, but some of the principles that the new current government is also implementing, including that green focus. And also when we talk about us going through maybe circular economy, promoting that, the green economy. There's a green economy, there's a yellow economy. So we are just saying even the yellow economy or the orange economy, that's the arts, media and entertainment. So it can't just be an effort of one sector. It can't just be the finance people who are going to drive this. We want to have people who are releasing new songs that are hip, that are trending, and the young guys can be able to resonate and still pass across the same message. So we are just saying that ESG has to be a collective responsibility for all of us. And while we command these numbers, we have different sectors within the market that we do, and different products. We want to have, and I told our chief business officer, she's called Vida Mwema, she couldn't be here. She's attending a meeting, an international conference on derivatives markets, but her colleague is here, Gift Curry. You can lift up your hand. He's in business development, and I also have my other colleague from corporate affairs. She's somewhere. Yes, there she is. Yeah. So one of the things that we said is that we are going to have a Kijani market. When you have all these different sectors, why can't we have a green market? And part of that green market is to be able to drive this agenda. So we can't just be talking about it, but even in our products, it has to be part and parcel of them. So we have the green bonds, one of them that we were able to launch through ACON, and of course we have the green REIT and D-REIT. So that means in the real estate investment trust, we also have products that are green. And of course we are supporting the national government in being able to issue a sovereign green bond. However, there are a few challenges. In Kenya we talk about kulikuwa na mamba katika inaitwaje Mto Jordan. Okay, they said that we were going to our promised land, but there was Mamba. So we were planning to do a sovereign green bond, but some things happened along the way that did not allow us to get through. But the plan is still there. We have a national policy. We have everything in place, and we should be able to do that. We've also been working aggressively also with the different counties to also have green bonds at the county level. So this year we visited different counties, over 8 of them, with different partners, working closely with FSD Kenya, to be able to promote some of this. And the theme was actually around green. So when we went to the counties, we were looking at what opportunities do the counties have. So the water companies that are already green. So we are looking at all of this. How can we be able to promote and also adopt maybe also a green way of financing? So even one of the leading counties that had already done a county bond was preparing for a county bond. They have already been sold. They are going to go now green. So, and that was at county level for the county government, and also to individuals and even to companies. Again, there are green projects that they have. If it is waste management, we've been working with the Nairobi City County. We visited the dam site and all that. There's a lot of waste. And in line with the theme of what we are discussing today, how can we convert that into wealth? How can we be able to borrow against that? So you're not just seeing it as a Dandora dam site. That place, you can convert it, get bio energy and all that, and then also clean up the city. So it has multiple benefits. And then when you look at such a project, then we are able to leverage off the waste so that we are seeing, and it can be resourceful and help us to gain financial power to also further develop. And of course there are different dreams that we've gotten. A walking city. Imagine if you could walk in Nairobi. When you are driving in Nairobi, sometimes there's a lot of that the smoke and all that. It's so stuffy. But imagine if we also had places where we could walk. One time I visited Paris, and it is a walking city. People are very fit. You don't find people my size. Everybody is slender, because they are walking. So I think that would really be good. And you don't need to overthink some of these solutions. We just need to have practical African indigenous solutions that are going to be there. And that's why we are really honored, even as an NSC, to be part and parcel of this. When I was coming in, I saw the different stands that are there. And one thing that, even if we don't have many things, we may not have the Oga things, we have the innovation. Kenya is a hub of innovation. We are the Silicon Savannah of Africa and the world. So we need to step up, especially, and have these innovations becoming green. Recently, I'd interacted with someone, and what they were talking about, they were an entrepreneur. And part of their design was actually to make clothes. And these clothes are going to be made of, it's called, I don't know if it's Dafai. Any Kikuyus here? All right, no Kikuyus. Anyway, so it is just local traditional plants that can be used to make good clothes. So we don't always have to overthink our solutions. Sometimes our solutions are just the natural things that we have. How can we convert that? We have so much forest cover. I remember, like now, Safaricom, they can adopt the forest. And that it helps in carbon emissions being saved. So there are so many things that we can be able to do as a nation and so many opportunities. We just need to unblock the mind. So my challenge to us is, let's unblock the mind. Let's be innovative. And there are so many innovators here. And with these innovators, then we can be able to push and also drive the economy from that sense. So that's a bit of the background. And of course, we are saying we'll do that through ESG. I don't need to preach to the choir. I believe you already know about ESG, which of course stands for the environmental. So having things that are also driven by the environment in terms of your business plan, in terms of your strategy, in terms of everything that you're doing, and then of course having social impact even to people and all that. So whatever strategy you're having, whatever thing that you're doing, let it also have that, even and also taking care of rights of children and all that. And then finally also embedding good governance. I think for us within the stock market, we are a center of excellence for governance. That is one of the things that we do. We encourage people to have good behavior. If it is reporting, if it is now being able to do the right things in terms of governance. The companies that are not doing well in the stock market, governance, period. Is that okay? Yeah, there are no two ways about it. So if we can also embed environmental practices and also social well-being and all that, purpose-driven companies like we've been told, then we shall see companies of the future. And we are happy that some of the listed companies already, at least 30 of them, you're already engaging with them to also have, we release a ESG guidance manual whereby they are able to also report on sustainability. So that is part of the background, and I won't go much on it. Of course, you've spoken a lot on ESG, which can be used as a management tool, part of decision making. When you're making a decision at your tender committees and all that, are we considering ESG? Also checking and evaluating progress. In your annual report, when you're reporting the profits, have you also included ESG as one of your measures? And then of course it also becomes a benchmark for you to be able to facilitate, and then also it helps to track performance and also identify risks and opportunities, so that when we are looking at risks, we are not just looking at the risks that are maybe just monetary, but also environmental gets to impact us. So we have also products that can also be made that are going to drive sustainability. So it's not just about just talking about ESG, but even the products that people are buying. If we had a green bond, people are buying into it. We did challenge Acon, they did the green bond. Can we have even those students also buying those bonds, so that even as they are growing up, they are also already, investing in green things. So we can be able to have some of that, and of course other things that are going to be there. We've also seen from an international scene, whereby especially the companies that have had negative impact on the environment and maybe even sustainability, their share prices has gone down, like Volkswagen. Also, when we had the oil spill by BP, what was noted is that their share price went down. And that's the same thing also for even the Kenyan companies. We will see that some of the ones that are not following some of these ESG principles, they are not doing well. But the ones that are following, they have consistently been doing well. And then when you look at also the global risks by the World Economic Forum, you'll notice that in the next 2 years, most of the risks are next 2 years, out of the top 10 risks, 5 of them are already to do with the environment. And when you look at further on, when you look at the horizon over 10 years, some of the biggest risks, sorry, it's not very clear, the top risk there is actually failure to mitigate climate change. So it has to be an imperative for all of us. It's not just something that we can say comes secondary, but we have to look at the real risk. We saw with COVID, when we neglected many things. When COVID came, it was from a health point of view. It became a big risk for us. And most people are really, you couldn't move. You never imagined that you'd be moving around in masks, being restricted to your house and all that. But that really happened. And that's what we are saying also. If we don't take care of the climate, big things are going to happen that are not, we'll have a world that we did not imagine. You know, we recently had a health talk. And one of the things that we were told is that health is essential. You know, sometimes you are out there, you want to make money, you want to really climb the career ladder, but you forget about your health. And health is very, very important. So that's what we are talking about. Even with ESG and this climate risk, it's about the health of the planet. It's about the health of where we are living. So it can't just be something that we are thinking about it secondarily. It may not be the glaring thing. You know, you don't wake up to think about, oh, how's the weather today and all that. Okay, it's just by the way. But you have to also take cognizance of the changes that are taking place. So we encourage, even from a risk point of view, for us to be cognizant about that. So, and of course, there is a shift that has taken place. I'll share the presentation from just investments to sustainability. And I won't, of course, there are different things. Most companies are moving towards the net zero. So even as a company, one of their objectives is actually to contribute towards this through their products, how they set their targets, even purpose-driven. One of our listed companies, Safaricom, they want to be a purpose-driven organization. So that is part and parcel of their mission. We had also Unilever, they're also listed. Again, they're also talking about that. And sustainability focus. Kakuzi, they did their sustainability report. So this has to be part and parcel of what we are also striving towards. So there are different standards, and some of them, like with our partnership with the UN Global Compact and Sustainable Stock Exchanges, we are members of the Sustainable Stock Exchanges. We've also driven education. Part of the changes to culture is education. So the more we embrace education, the more we have more enlightenment about this, and even our training department, the more we are going to see some of these changes taking place. So of course there are different thoughts, especially on taxation, where there's a proposal to tax the companies that are polluting the environment. So that is also a trend that is coming up, especially within the most countries that are looking at that. So part of the drivers, of course, for ESG should also be, even as we've noted, especially with the sustainable business, sustainable development goals, SDGs, we have to also be like what my predecessor talked about, and to have a decade of action whereby we are also actualizing. Let us embed what SDGs have you adopted as an organization. So it would be very important for us in NSC. We are looking at partnerships for sustainability is one of the ones that we are looking at. So we are encouraging also other people to adopt some of these SDGs, and then also to pay attention to that. And of course there are changes that have taken place, especially even with the pandemic. Changes, people are now, even their choices are now pro-health. So we also want even changes that are, or even decision making that is also pegged on that. I won't go much on this, but all we are saying is that there's a rising demographic of investors who part of their criteria for investing is sustainability. They check on that. So and even the young people that we are talking about, most of them, they would rather pay more to get something that is sustainable. And then also rating agencies. We also have and are working with different rating agencies. Like when we went through the counties, we have a Kenyan company that is actually ESG, that is also rating ESG, and also that becomes important because also for green and even carbon emissions, they have to be rated and quantified. So it's not just saying that we are part of this, but how can we be able to quantify that? Even to the customer preferences, especially the millennials, also going for brands that are friendly, that are ESG compliant, and then also supply chains, making sure that our supply chain, everybody, not just you as a company, but everybody else that you're engaging is also ESG compliant. And then regulators like the vision, embedded in the vision, the central bank, ourselves, we have the CMA, we are the center of UNEP. UNEP is actually headquartered here, so we actually need to lead by example, even to employees and engaging with them. So for us within the market, we have of course products that are green. We are also looking at also a carbon market. We were given the mandate by the Attorney General to set up the carbon market that is going to propel and trade some of these carbon credits. One of our listed companies, that is Kengen, I think they had to go all the way to Japan to trade their carbon credits. But we said, why can't we set up a market here, and that can be able to be pan-African, that can be able to trade some of these carbon credits. So we are committed to carbon credit. Even by establishing that, we have a manual, and of course we are looking towards having a platform for that. As I close on carbon trading, of course we have voluntary carbon markets. That means that you can also decide, I want to voluntarily declare my carbon credits and trade them. So that is one option that we have. But also we have the compliance carbon markets, whereby it is made mandatory for you to actually trade and also look at the emissions that are being done. So we have looked into the two models, and we are currently doing a study to be able to set up a carbon market. So the carbon market would be overseen by a regulatory body. In this case, we are working with the CMA and also the Nairobi International Finance Center. And then we also are going to have liquidity providers, and we'll also have the different firms that are going to be trading carbon. And as the exchange, will be providing the mechanism to be able to trade the carbon credits. So that is an infrastructure that would encourage you, both from a demand side, people who want to buy into green investments, and carbon credits can come, and then people who already have carbon credits, you can come to the market and offset that through the market. We have partnered with the Air Carbon Exchange. We did an MOU with them. So it is a solution of blockchain that is actually empowering this, that is going to facilitate now the trading of carbon credits. So we are still in the works and still engaging with them together with the Nairobi International Finance Center to be able to launch that. I hope I've not rushed to the end, but thank you very much. Boni, asante sana.
Thank you so much, Irungu, for that presentation. And I bet that presentation is available if you want to get it. Yeah, we can access it. Excellent. Great. That was a deep dive into carbon, yeah? Okay, great. So we want to just talk a little bit more on that and emissions, and just try to really figure out, like I keep saying, what our individual roles are. And we will be settling now for a panel that will just try and talk a little bit about that, but also just to highlight and put a spotlight on some of the work they're already doing in the different spaces that they operate. This panel will be moderated by Dr. Edward Mungai, who is the partner and lead consultant at Impact Africa Consulting. Put a round of applause as we welcome Dr. Mungai, who will introduce his panel. Karibu.
Thanks, Boni, for that. Good morning. Good morning. Well, I think that's very interesting. Wagema is sometimes called Wari Wadaku. You know, I've been participating in a challenge where NSC teams have been involved, and his team is called Wari Wandaku. And the truth of the matter is that they won. And Wagema, thank you very much for that introduction about carbon markets. But I'm still confused. What is this carbon we are talking about? You know, I give a very simple example, which hopefully, you know, will lead us into this conversation. Before, and I'll be introducing Joseph in a few minutes, I used to work for something called KCIC. And KCIC is all about helping entrepreneurs, innovators to think about climate change as an opportunity. And, you know, what Sandy was telling us, it's not just about doing things to feel good. It's about doing them as good business. But as I went through that trajectory of being in KCIC for close to 10 years, 3 years before I left, I thought one of the best things that I could do for my mom is actually to set up a biogas system for her. Yeah? Within the suppliers, you know, who provide biogas, there's one called SES Biogas, a Mr. Karanja. And I asked him to provide that service. Of course, it cost $1,500 to be able to put up a biogas system. Not many farmers, actually, with 2 cows, can be able to afford that. But we went ahead, you know, and found, and Judy, maybe this is an opportunity for KCB to provide the financing for those biogas systems. But eventually she got a biogas system, and 3 years later, which is about 6 months ago, you know, my mom called me very excited and said, you know, Karanja was here and he gave me 30,000 shillings. And when I asked, why were you given 30,000 shillings? You know, my mom said it's because he apparently says that I've been using the biogas system very well. Oh, wait a minute. So you get a refund of the cost that you paid, meaning 150 minus the 30,000 ends up to be 120,000. But I didn't stop there, you know, by my mom explaining why she got this 30,000. So I called Karanja to try and figure out exactly what's going on here. Oh, Karanja told me, by the way, my biogas system are on a voluntary scheme of carbon. And therefore I got paid, and I thought it was important that I should refund that money to your mom. Oh, wait a minute. This guy is called who? Karanja. And he gave out how much? So for sure, Karanja must have gotten more money. For sure. There's no doubt about that. But truly, this was money from carbon trading. It is still a black box. Many of us don't understand it. But this is the reason why I have a fantastic panel, starting with Kengen. James, if you can take your seat. So James is coming from Kengen. And truly, Kengen is one of the companies that have already made money. Out of 360,000 tons of carbon which they have sold. Wagema was telling us that they've sold in Japan, but what about selling that? By the way, they have 4.6 million tons which is seated there and looking for a market. Okay? He's been in carbon market for close to 20 years. Can you imagine? He's been talking about these things for 20 years. And Kengen, and he'll be sharing to us a little bit more information. Now, the problem in this room is that it happens that many of my panelists is my clients, is people that I know, and therefore, Judith, you are the next one. So if Judith, you can take the seat. And Judith is coming from KCB. And KCB is the first bank to go out and make a commitment to say that 25% of our portfolio need to be green by the year 2025. If you're asking what is that 25% and what does it mean, my friends, we are talking about 250 billion shillings. Judith have been on the forefront of that, trying to assist the bank to capture that perspective. And also, Judith is first one in East Africa to provide us with what is called Green Climate Fund when KCB got accredited as a private entity to provide funding for up to $50 million all the way to 250 million. Let's clap for Judy. Now, the third panelist is Joseph Murambura. This one is the one that I handed over in KCIC. He's the CEO of KCIC, and KCIC job is to help small and medium enterprises to be able to see climate change as an opportunity. May it be in agriculture, water, waste, commercial forestry, and in renewable energy. He's seen through more than 2,000 enterprises, which hopefully he will tell us whether they've been taking some carbon credits. And finally is Rosalind from Bio Foods. Where is Rosalind? Yes, please take the seat. This one is amazing and is a new entrant within the sustainability space. And if you haven't watched that video about them telling how they have gotten into B Corp, then you are missing out. Please visit BioFood's website. You'll see the video. It is amazing. She's been in sustainability for about 2 years, and she's a biotech, who have HR experience, and at the same time is trying to understand this whole discussion about climate change. That is my panel, and probably I start with you, James. Tell us, what is these carbon credits and how have you made money out of them?
Thank you, Dr. Mungai. Talking about carbon credit, I want to use the example of renewable energy to be able to explain what carbon credit is. Now, imagine that in the absence of a renewable energy plant like geothermal, you develop a thermal plant. Okay? How much emissions are you going to emit from implementing a thermal power plant? So use that as an example, which is a baseline. In the absence of a renewable energy, you will do a thermal power plant. So use that as a baseline and now implement a renewable energy project that avoids the emissions from a thermal power plant. So for us to be able to quantify, you use that baseline of a thermal plant. Now implement your project, include the project emissions. The emissions from your project, you subtract from the baseline emissions. With that, now you're able to have a quantity of emissions that you've reduced by an alternative of a renewable energy project. So that is how you get a carbon credit, which is quantified in carbon dioxide or a carbon dioxide equivalent. So that's, in a nutshell, how to explain a carbon credit.
Let me understand this a little bit more. So let's take the example that I gave, because now he's talking to us about Kengen. We just heard from Unilever. We also heard from NSE. But then we have many small and medium enterprises. We have individuals who also can be able to benefit from carbon credits. But my understanding from what you said is that previously, my mom was cooking using wood fuel.
Yes.
Now, so you've gone one step, so you've got this waste ni mali, or waste is wealth, using, cow dung, which anyway was waste, get methane out of it, and use the methane to cook. So the baseline then is that wood fuel cooking.
Yes.
And the difference between the carbon captured, between wood fuel and the methane captured and used for biogas, is the carbon credit. So nobody in this room then should ask what is carbon credits. I think we are in good hands. But then how have you made money, as Kengen?
Thank you, Dr. Mungai. So, Kengen, in the year 2006, began engaging in conversation about this issue of carbon credits through the Clean Development Mechanism. And with partnership with the World Bank, we were able to look at some of the projects that we were going to implement anyway in terms of our renewable energy projects, and so that there's an opportunity for us to benefit and have additional revenue. So our first project was the development of an additional 35 megawatts in Okaria 2. This was in addition to the already 70 megawatts that we had, and we developed that as a carbon credit project. And this was able to contribute for us about 149,000 tons of carbon emissions on an annual basis. By implementing this project, we had to go through a rigorous process of registering the project. The first thing that you have to do is to do a prior consideration, where you have to show that you need these carbon credits by implementing this project. And what you do is to communicate to the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, through its CDM Executive Board, and the national approval body, or the designated national approving body. In our case, it's NEMA, who will do that role for us in terms of ensuring that these projects contribute to sustainable development. Once you do that notification, you go ahead to do a project design document. This project design document is then published on the UN website for stakeholder comments. Once that period is over, you do a validation from a third party certifier, in this case, an audit firm like TÜV-Nord, Bureau Veritas, or those kind of auditors who will do the validation to confirm that indeed your project has the potential to generate carbon credits. Once you do this, you are able to, the auditors will then forward your project to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change through its executive board for registration. Once the project is registered after meeting the criteria, you are then mandated to do the monitoring. This monitoring is to ensure that what you promise that you will reduce in terms of emission has actually happened. And this you have to document in a monitoring report. That's not all. Once you do your monitoring report, you again call another auditor, if the project is large scale, to confirm that what you are claiming is true. So it's a rigorous process. And once this is done, again, the report is submitted to the UNFCCC through its CDM Executive Board to check for completeness of the reporting and ensure that this is not what we'll call hot air, but it's real. Okay? So once that is done, then carbon credits are issued. Once they are issued, now you are able to engage potential buyers and sell your credits.
Well, I wonder whether our SMEs can follow that process. But we'll come back to that, because it seems like that process is quite hectic. But thank God we have the voluntary, scheme around carbon credits, and we'll come back to that. But Judith, 250 billion shillings is what is the target for KCB. can you articulate to us how that ambition will be achieved and what kind of products and how can SMEs in particular be able to benefit when it comes to this funding?
Good morning, everyone. And very excited to be here this morning as we discuss about that our waste is wealth, and that we are also having very good discussions on sustainability and also environmental and social governance. I remember early in the years, such a topic would not even get half a room filled. But I'm glad that today we have so many people who are interested. We are getting a lot of questions. We are having a lot of workshops and trainings for capacity building for the various industries, so that all of us can be at par, all of us can move together, all of us can be able to make sure that we are actioning. And I was also happy that my colleague from Unilever was talking about action. And I think that is the phase that we are in. Everybody must action and play their part. Because if we don't play our part in terms of action, then it will still remain an ambition which is in paper. And we have seen now there's a lot of opportunity in that space, the green space. And so there are a lot of opportunities for us to take advantage of so that we can create the impact that we need for our society. So for KCB, our sustainability journey started in 2008. So it is a journey that we have had to go through, learning with mistakes and challenges, trying to see what other people are doing, of course not having local materials to read from and understand, unlike today. And so what we did is that we tried to put systems into place as an organization so that all of us could be able to read from the same script. Because one thing we normally say, you can have an ambition, but again, if you don't have key performance indicators, you don't have targets, you don't give capacity building to your employees, then it becomes a very difficult thing to achieve. So it is something that we did embrace as a long-term target, because we knew it's something that we cannot achieve overnight. There'll be lots of learnings to be done. And even today, still we see there's still a lot to be learned, but it is much better. We can be able to reference, we can walk to different organizations and institutions to sit down and understand what exactly can be done and what works for us, what doesn't, what we feel doesn't work. We then keep it and say maybe in the medium term we can look at it. And so that has been our journey as we progressed into this environmental and social governance and sustainability space. So Daktari has asked me about the green financing space. So the green financing space as a bank, we embraced it in 2014. Of course, we looked at where are the opportunities in the green space. So we just used to hear, just like you guys were sitting today, things about green space and what is this? How can it be done? You know, how do you identify such in your portfolio? So we had to go through an exercise so that we could be able to identify in our own portfolio what percentage can constitute green so that we can start with as a baseline. So we did that in the year 2016, 2017, and we were able to see that our green portfolio stood at around 4%. And so we said, okay, with a baseline of 4%, let us see what is the potential. And so we worked around the potential. Of course, there are various tools that you can use. At that time, we used the CAFI tool, which they call the Climate Assessment Finance tool. So we used that to be able to gauge and measure that. And of course, we were able to see that somehow we were standing at between 7 and 8%. And of course, when we were working now on our current strategy, which is supposed to be ending this year, which we call Beyond Banking, at that time then we said, okay, so from the year then 2024, from the year 2023, sorry, we will then make sure that by the year 2025, at least a quarter of our book should be green. Now, the target was put there, but we didn't know the how. Okay, so yes, we have put it there. How are we going to make sure that we get the 25%? But the good thing, because we had a baseline, we had looked at the opportunities, and we saw these opportunities and agriculture, where there are big opportunities. Energy also is a good example, where one of my panelists also is. There are a lot of opportunities there on renewable. Transport also came in so strongly, manufacturing. So those are the 4 areas that we felt we can have quick wins, even as we sort out the other sectors, and real estate. Those are the sectors that we have felt we can be able to fast track in terms of scale for green. Of course, we are also looking at, we also looked at our resource consumption to see how can we also be able to use our resource consumption data so that we can also be able to track our internal emissions. So using our internal emissions and also for the clients. And that was the motivation for us also to say, can we also get accredited with the Green Climate Fund and work with the different development finance partners who can also be able to assist us in terms of even de-risking the SMEs. So that has been the process that we have gone so far. Currently, by last year, we were at 12.3% of our green book. So we are progressing well. So we are supposed to increase 4% by 2025. We should be at 25. So next year, I think it's supposed to be 17 or 18, and then 25. So we have 2 years. So this year, we really have to push the target to 17, 18 for us to be sure that we will reach that 25. Yeah, so we have seen the potential is there, and because we do have projects, we do have proposals that have been coming through, which of course are being assessed by our development financial partners, as well as the Green Climate Fund. We do see that, yes, there's quite a big potential there for both our corporate clients and also as for our SMEs. And so as a bank, we also took the initiative to make sure that we can also train both our SMEs and also our corporate clients on the potential that is there, so that we can take advantage of it as we give them lending. So lending, we know, is a key thing that we do as a bank. So how do we make sure that even our lending is very deliberate to make sure that we tap into these green spaces which have not been picked up, or which we feel are an opportunity and the client can take advantage of it to be able to realize results. One of the things about green lending is sometimes the results are not immediate. You might see better results in a year or 2 or 5 years. So again, having patience also with our clients to be able to provide long-term funding so that then they can also be able to access some of these facilities at a very reasonable rate, so that then they can be able to implement and whatever they would like to implement for their projects.
Thanks, Judy. And clearly, there's quite a lot that is, out there for SMEs, for companies to try and convert and see whether they can get funding. This week, I think on Monday, something interesting happened. Our president told us that the time for something that I call NATO is over. NATO means no action, talk only. He told us that there is no even need for COP29. Yes, we are going to COP28, but we should think about not having COP29, because, as Sunday is telling us, it's time for action. But the perspective that is being put here is about investments. How can we be able to channel investment? And indeed, this is in congruence to what he said in COP27. That the Kenyan biggest export, or number 3 export, will become carbon. But I'm curious, from an investment perspective, because we are talking about investment. And Joseph, you've been at the center stage of helping enterprises to become investor ready for sustainable finance. What are some of the challenges? As we go beyond NATO and we try to push investment, what are some of the challenges that these enterprises will face as they try to go to Judith, for instance, to get this money we are talking about?
Thank you, Dr. Yeah, so as Dr. said, Dr. Mungai said, I'm from the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, and He's the one who actually started the Kenya Climate Innovation Center. So today he is here asking questions. Yeah, so quite a lot of what I'm about to say, I think you already know, but it's important for us to have this conversation. Because the Kenya Climate Innovation Center started off about 11 years ago in 2012. And through what we do, we've been able to support about 3,500 enterprises. And all these are climate smart enterprises, because what we do is get people with very good ideas around climate, and through what we call an incubation and acceleration process, turn those ideas into enterprises, both to support the fight against climate change, that is reduce carbon, and also create jobs and create sustainable businesses, as it were. So the question is, what are some of the challenges that these enterprises face in terms of attracting funding? And I'm happy that I'm sitting next to Judith, because he provides that funding. Quite a lot of time, what you find is that the procedures for accessing this funding are fairly complex, especially if you are talking about SMEs, because these people come with only ideas, and then we are able to support them to turn into businesses. The procedures are very, very complex to be able to access this funding. There's lots of documentation to do. You have to do a lot of structures in terms of your own governance. You need a track record. And then, of course, you then now need to show a sustainable business. And all that, as you can imagine, if you are a startup, those are things you probably don't have. The second challenge is around what I would call transaction costs. When James from Kengen was speaking, and how they have been able to access funding through the carbon markets, he spoke about very many stages to be able to access that funding. What you will actually realize is that it's probably a 5-year process, or upwards of a 5-year process from when you get registered to when you access that funding. You have to go through quite a lot of steps: registration, verification, issuance, and all of them require money. So if you don't have the knowledge, then you have to hire somebody to actually do it for you. That somebody obviously will not do it for free. So you need to be able to pay that person. That itself becomes a barrier. For people perhaps in this room, you can access these funders easily, but for the SMEs that we support, they probably don't even know the address of these funders. And if they know the address, they just don't have the language. And so they need some sort of midwifing to be able to get there. And if you are, say, an aggregator or an incubator like ourselves, you need to raise money at scale. What you generally find is that most of this money is not available locally. So you have to spend quite a bit of money going to the capitals of the funders, or where the funders are, to be able to get this money. The third challenge is normally around what I would call the challenge of informality. Many businesses in this country are informal, including climate smart businesses. They are not formalized. Most of the people who bring money, be they donor money bringing grants, be they banks, be they development finance institutions, or even impact investors, want to deal with formal entities. And so at KCIC, we actually spend millions every year just trying to get these businesses formalized, so that then they can be what you call investor ready. We support them register as businesses. We support them with doing things we call shareholder agreements, because this business will be owned by more than one person. So you need to define rules upfront. We support them in terms of their governance, and even most of the time we actually hire auditors to look at the books of these enterprises, purely to ensure that the challenge of informality is surmounted, and then therefore these enterprises are able to raise money. Now, if you are raising money at scale and you are dealing with external parties, countries, funders from countries that are not Kenya, so they are out there, then you also have to contend with the politics around it. A couple of years ago, when we were trying to raise money, we had done a strategy that was going to take us to other countries. Midway through that process, we were told that that country was no longer a political priority for our funders, and therefore we cannot use their money in that country. And so the project basically just collapsed. So politics becomes a fairly big issue. You could be in the process of raising this money to support SMEs or to support small businesses, and then there's a change of government or there's a change of policy, and you end up in the situation where you are unable to raise money as such. So those are some of the challenges that we face as we raise climate smart money. The other is just the nature of climate smart technologies. They're usually capital intensive. You need a lot of money upfront. Usually when you surmount them, once you are able to get these projects up and running, usually the operating costs are low, but there's always a barrier that you need a lot of money upfront to get these businesses up and running, even if they are very small businesses like the ones we support, and that in itself becomes a barrier. So what we are basically saying is that there are lots of challenges to trying to get these businesses up, but the most important thing, as Dr. Mungai said, is action. Begin. Once you begin, you will find a lot of supporters from the ecosystem, including KCIC. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank Joseph for reaffirming the fact that, KCIC is there to help. And one other thing that Joseph didn't tell you, out of these 3,500 enterprises that you've supported, there have been applications for more than 40,000. So actually, if we can get, some of this money also going to Joseph so that then he can be able to push it to 10,000 enterprises, then we will be able to see the opportunities that he can be able to create. Rosalie, as I said before, I was fascinated, by that video that Biofoods made. And Biofood is a company that I have followed since 2007, clearly establishing itself and its products, as sustainable products. But then I'm wondering, of course the video talks about many things, but specifically on climate action. What's the strategy? What is it that you're doing at Biofoods? And what are some of the successes and some of the challenges that you're facing as you go through that journey?
Asante sana. As Daktari has said, I'm from Biofoods. I'm just going to take this opportunity to brag that we're the first B Corp food and manufacturing industry in Kenya. So that just proves that sustainability is actually embedded in everything that we do. All our business decisions are made with regards to sustainability. So let me just start by saying we started a very intentional journey on everything sustainability in 2018. When we started rethinking design of our packaging, the emissions we were letting out in the environment. And the first thing that we did was start measuring, because you cannot implement any solutions or reduce any emissions if you're not measuring. So we started with measuring our emissions in 2019, where whatever we got at that time is now what we planned around the strategies that we made. So we reduced the amount of water that we had been using in our processes, which means we started reusing some of the water because some of the water was still clean. We created an underground tank where all this water that was clean would go, and then it would be reused or recycled. We also route optimized all our, so this means that we created newer routes for all our trucks and how they deliver products, and we saw a drastic reduction when it came to the fuel that we were using in terms of our trucks. We also planned our production in such a way that we reduced our production days from 6 days to 5 days. So what this did, it reduced the amount of IDO that we were using, but we still maintained the production that was being done. So anyone who's from a technical department already knows that when you fire up a boiler, whether you're using it or not using it, it's still going to consume IDO. So the best way to plan around usage of fuel is to make sure that you plan your production correctly. So that was the other thing that we did. We also upped how we were taking care and maintaining our equipment, which means boilers, machines, and all that. So it means when they're properly maintained, they use less energy, they use less fuel. We also installed a solar plant, a 343 kilowatt solar plant that really reduced what we were tapping from the grid. And with all these initiatives that we did, the next year when we did our carbon calculations, for scope 1 and scope 2, we had a 30% reduction, which is really, really a lot. And we have been learning and we have been growing, so the sustainability agenda in our company is live. Whatever idea worked last year does not necessarily work this year, and we're big on adapting the idea that works, the idea that's going to reduce our carbon emission, because the conversation today is on carbon credits, but we have the carbon credits market because businesses emit carbon. So this is how we've decided to do it in our company. Our first strategy is to make sure that we reduce the absolute carbon that we're emitting from our business. And yeah, so those are some of the things that we're doing in our company.
Fair enough, and really following on that, and congratulations for cutting emissions, both scope 1 and scope 2, to 30%. I'm wondering, what about scope 3, which then is on the value chain? And I think that's also very important, because my mother, who probably could be supplying to bio, then is part of that scope 3, but we'll talk about that. Now, when we talk about commitments, and commitments that bio is making now is part of the B Corp, I'm curious whether you have net zero, carbon neutrality kind of ambitions, and if you do, how does that look like? And secondly, have you been involved in carbon trading, either buying or selling or offsetting, whichever it is, and what have been your experiences?
Biofoods has been carbon neutral for 3 years now. We are not directly involved in the trading, selling or buying. The company that does calculations for carbon for us is called One Carbon World. So they will ask for all the details. It's more of an audit, because they will go through all your usage for fuel, all the things that you've purchased in terms of capex, and go through whatever you've been doing in terms of OPEX and CAPEX, and then they'll get your carbon emissions. So the same One Carbon World is in touch with carbon verified projects. So once we've gotten all our emissions, we do offset our scope 1 and scope 2, just to make it clear. We do not offset our scope 3 at the moment. But so One Carbon World is the middle man between us and the projects that we invest in. I was having a conversation with Dr. in the morning, and he introduced a concept. I think it's the same project where his mom is involved, and that involves a voluntary scheme, which is something we've looked into, because we have a lot of farmers who have cows, which means biogas systems are very viable when it comes to them. I think our main challenge has been how to calculate these particular emissions from these farmers, and this is something we're looking into, talking to people already in the carbon market system, because we wouldn't want to say that we're offsetting and then we cannot actually verify how much we are offsetting. So we'd like to be very factual. We are keen on providing information that we've actually verified. So yes, we offset to projects that One Carbon World has already verified.
Thanks, Rosalind. And I know we've talked about carbon credit mainly from the direction of production of those carbon credits, but then there is a market for them. In fact, it's only last week, for those who follow international news on sustainability, that we saw Delta Airlines, having a lot of backlash now because they have this $1 billion project of becoming carbon neutral. And the reason why they are getting to the backlash is because on the ticket, once you buy a ticket from Delta, then they tell you, do you want to offset your miles? Or rather, do you want to offset your carbon emissions by paying us $10, $15? This is exactly the same we see on KLM. I think Kenya Airways probably very soon will start introducing that. And that, fits into that, what Rosalind is just introducing us, which is the voluntary market. And I would ask James, to say a little bit about voluntary market, because what he told us, it can only be for big companies, which have the muscle, which have the money. But for the SMEs, this voluntary carbon market seems like what our president is talking about. But how do we get there, James? And, what do you see again as the challenges? And I know there's legal issues, there's regulatory issues, but what do you see as the challenges there?
Thank you, Dr. Mungai. Indeed, the opportunities for the SMEs and the smaller companies are there with respect to the voluntary carbon schemes. Currently, we have Coal Standard as one of the programs that are running. We also have the FERA, or Voluntary Carbon Standards. These offer opportunities, and if I give an example of the cook stoves, if you look at the households that are able to implement those cook stoves, an aggregator of those cook stoves will be easily able to package a program that can benefit from those voluntary carbon standards. So there are those opportunities. Talking of challenges, there are quite a number of challenges in the carbon markets. Talking of the long approval process, I'll give some numbers with respect to 4 of our projects. We've registered 6 CDM projects. 4 of those projects took us 1,307 days from when we were posted the project design document to when the project was registered. That's about 3.6 years. You can imagine the kind of patience that you're expected to have if you are going to stick until you get your project registered. So that long approval process has several factors. One is the support from national institutions, from policy perspective, the internal technical capacity. So that needs to be enhanced through creation of awareness, so that we are able to appreciate the technical nature of carbon markets, which are based on established procedures. These procedures have to be complied with for your project to be registered. Again, the upfront cost for development of projects is prohibitive. You are supposed to pay the validator before the project is registered. You are supposed to have some funds to pay for registration of the project. So all these are prohibitive for small-scale projects, but if there's an aggregation, this will have an opportunity for this small project to be combined, and at the end of the implementation, then some of this could be offset from the benefit of the credits. There is also need for agility in the sense that we need to adapt to changes. Looking at the current scenario where we are migrating from the Kyoto Protocol to Paris requires us to move from the procedures that we had to the new procedures that are being set up. the national approval process needs to be agile enough to be able to be set up early so that we are able to benefit from these programs. And like what we saw with the Kyoto scheme, the CDM, this was a challenge leading to Africa contributing to only about 2.8% of the CDM market, whereas the Asian and Latin American countries contributed the larger percentage of these carbon markets. So that's the challenge that we need to embrace, and at policy level, we need to move faster so that we're able to put up these structures. Thank you.
Thanks, thanks, James, for that. I think just to share some insights there, one, and this is my view, by the way, one of the solutions, and again for the young people in the room, for the innovators in the room, I think the solution will be technology. How can we probably be able to use the digital space? Because when I listen more to James, I hear a couple of things. I hear issues of monitoring, I hear issues of reporting, I also hear issues of verification. The sooner we can be able to do that, then we can be able to unlock this market and money can be able to flow. Now, what's the role of digital technologies, for instance, in regards to that space? This is food for thought for the innovators, for the entrepreneurs. But as you think about that, Joseph, you told to us about 3,500 companies. That's a lot. And I would also wonder how many jobs, because there is green jobs which have also been made as part of that process. But my question is more, for the benefit of the audience. Could you share with us some of those examples, so that we can put, this innovation, incubation, acceleration process into context by sharing some, examples, and where possible, you tell us whether you have or they have benefited from carbon credits.
Yeah. Good, thank you, Dr. Our carbon credits component has not been very active. So right now is when we are looking at putting together a program to be able to get our clients to benefit from the carbon markets. Over the 11 years, we have reduced or sequestered about 500,000 metric tons of carbon. So what we are seeing is that that's a very big opportunity for us and for our clients if we were to be able to convert that into cash. Basically, we are talking about billions, and it can finance quite a lot of these enterprises. So the question is, what are some of the examples of the enterprises we've supported? As I mentioned, we've supported over 3,500. We've created over 40,000 jobs over the 11 years. We create an average of 4,000 jobs every year. The first example, and I think all of you have seen it, I don't know if they are still in the room, is Takataka Solutions. I think let's start there, because I saw their banner when I walked in. Basically, they are in the waste recycling space. Their mantra is to ensure there's zero waste, and out of there, they then create a lot of commercially viable products. So that's a very live example, and if they're in the room, I think we can have a conversation after that. In the waste space still, we have a client in Sagana who is doing a fairly revolutionary product, if I may call it that. Many of you in this room probably have phones, and you are, and those phones have chargers. If you look at your charger, the probability is that charger is imported out of China, because there's only one person making chargers locally. It makes them out of waste and is supported by KCIC, and that is an organization called Totoski Solutions. They are based in Sagana, and it's owned by a young man called Anthony Mudungu. I got permission to talk about him, so not to worry. So what he's doing is he collects waste, converts that waste into phone chargers and laptop chargers. And now he's gotten, I think, about 4 orders from some of the biggest companies in this country. And he's busy as we speak. He's basically busy for the next 5 years. He has orders that he cannot meet for the next 5 years. What we are doing for him now is to expand his capacity. So we've given him funding to bring in an additional machine. The machine he has is very unique. It's not available locally. It's only available in India. So he's bringing it. So you can see. And all he's doing is he takes waste, processes it into connectors, and then he gets wires, and somehow he's able to weave them into a very nice charger. If you go online and just look at Totoski Holdings, you'll be able to see those chargers, both for phones and for cables. We've also supported an enterprise that is revolutionizing the macadamia space. If you ignore the big players, thicker nuts or cashew nuts, you'll get a company called Exotics EPZ, probably in the second tier in that industry. So that was an idea started off within KCIC, and what they do is they work with farmers to ensure that their farming is climate smart, take those macadamia from those farmers, process them, and then export them abroad, mostly to Spain, to Netherlands, to China, and to America. So yeah, and then our other example, which is not in the West space, is in the renewable energy space. I don't know if they are here. We have a company called King's Biofuels, who make very good briquettes, basically for cooking, as a way of conserving the environment, ensuring that we don't cook using firewood, and therefore we don't keep on cutting trees. And then in the same space also is a company called Acacia Innovations. They decided that they didn't want to do this in the urban areas, so they went to the villages of Bungoma and set up a factory there. And because of that, they create a lot of employment and opened up a whole village to economic activity. And if you Google again, you'll find a company called Coco Networks. Now, these ones do clean cooking solutions, basically use ethanol to be able to create a more sustainable way of cooking. So I could go on and on. As I said, there are 3,500 of them, and we have a success rate, if you like, of 67%, meaning that 2/3 of all enterprises who come to KCIC and go through a selection process and become our clients end up being commercial entities. In this country, very many enterprises are started off as ideas within KCIC. To ensure that we support them further, we have decentralized. Now we have offices across the country. We have an office in Kilifi to cover the coast region. We have an office in Machakos to cover what we call the lower eastern region. So Machakos, Makueni, Kitui, Kajiado. Then we have an office in Isiolo to cover what we call the frontier counties. So Isiolo, Marsabit, Mandera, Garissa, Wajir are all served now out of Isiolo. We have an office in Kiambu, of course, for the central region, Nairobi, Nakuru, Kiambu, Murang'a. We have an office in Meru for the Mount Kenya region. So Meru, Nyeri, Laikipia, Kirinyaga all served from there. We have an office in Bungoma for the Western Kenya region. So Bungoma, Busia, Siaya, Kakamega are all served out of there. Then we have an office in Eldoret for the North Rift. So Uasin Gishu, Elgeyo Marakwet, Turkana, Baringo, Nandi are served out of Eldoret. Then we have an office in Kisii for the Nyanza region. So every inch of Kenya. And why are we doing this? Basically, we have a decentralization strategy, because what we've seen is that lots of these innovations, lots of these technologies are moving down to the counties. When we started off in 2012, Most of these innovations were concentrated around Nairobi, so Nairobi and its environs, or what we call the Nairobi Metropolitan, but we've seen many of them move to the counties, and to ensure that we are closer to them, we've also opened offices in those areas. I could go on and on, giving examples, but probably, Dr. You can help. You can permit me to stop there.
Sure, sure. And I like, that expansion into the counties, because the future is the county, the future is devolution. But one point that Joseph, and I don't know whether you guys realize this point, one thing he said in that, story is that KCIC in the last 11 years have managed to have 500,000 tons of CO2. A quick calculation, today it's at about $10, so you can imagine that's $5 million. But because we don't have the structures, we don't have the knowledge to try and see how that money can be able to flow, then we haven't been able to capture that. But Kengen, which have sold so far 360,000, which is less than what, of course they have 4.6 million in stock, but it seems like there's something here. We just need to figure out how to bring this money, and I do hope that this conversation continues, trying to figure that. But, we had a speech from NSC, from Unilever, and here I have Judith. Traditionally, it's been said, and of course we have Kengen, traditionally it's been said that sustainability is for the big, rich, old companies. Now, Judith, do you see sustainability being part and parcel of the SMEs, and SMEs actually making money out of sustainability? And before you answer that question, I was just making a joke a few hours ago, to Mary and I think Eve. When you look at them, they don't represent anything about waste. They represent wealth. And this is the wealth that then we are saying, how can we use that piece called sustainability to unlock the wealth for SMEs? Judith, what are some of the lessons? How can you help us?
Thank you, Dr. So sustainability is for everyone. So it's not just for big companies that we say we can be able to do. And the good thing with sustainability, you are allowed to start at your own level. So it doesn't dictate that you must start at this level. By 12 months, you should have reached this level. It is you to work out your plan. So that is the good thing about sustainability. It allows you to start at your own level, where you are. What do you think you can be able to do around your space to be able to ensure that you start embracing it, even as an SME. And as a bank, what we have done also is to try and give a lot of capacity building, even to our own SMEs, through the Biashara clubs that we have for them on a monthly basis, through the different engagements that we do with them, through workshops that we have with them. So we try to pass also this message to them, give them practical examples on how you can actually become a sustainable company by employing things which actually don't cost you much. Because one of the things about perception is that people think sustainability is an expensive venture, but it is not. It is just what you do on a day-to-day, but twist it and make sure that whatever you're doing, you can reuse, you can recycle, and you can ensure that you can be able to be efficient and make cost savings. Because once you give that to the SME, they know, okay, yeah, that now makes business sense for me. So actually, it is also the language that we have been using. And also, this is one of the things also we have been also talking with our staff and enlightening our staff on, that sustainability is no longer CSR, it is no longer CSI, it is no longer a good thing to have, it is actually a business. And so once they get that context that this is a business, it drives my top line, it drives my business growth, it drives my strategic objectives which I must achieve, my KPIs, then it starts making sense to everybody that indeed this thing is a business imperative and it must be embraced. So the same also for our SMEs. We have seen there's a lot of opportunity, even with our women. We have women groups, women chairmans. All these, what it has done is to force the banks also to be innovative, to come up with products that can be able to support women groups. Instead of asking for collateral normally what we would ask for, now they can guarantee each other. So all these are things that are coming up to be able to ensure as much as possible that every SME, well, I know for SMEs we have different categories. We have SMEs that we call upper SMEs, and also we have the medium SMEs, and then we also have the micro SMEs. So all of them, you have to take them on board with you on that journey as you make sure that everybody is doing a sustainable business. But yes, it can be done now at all levels. And there are examples that can be shared to show that it can actually succeed. So you really don't have to be a big business for you to do sustainability.
Well, it sounds like a cultural change that is required within our organization to walk the people into the movement of sustainability. And I like what Judith, you said, it's no longer CSR. You know, sometimes I ask people, what does CSR mean? And a lot of people tell me many things, but simply it means cosmetic social responsibility, and it's not the future. The future is where we embed it within the business, as we heard from Sandy and as we have heard from Judith, and also from, you know, NSC. Rosarid, finally, before I get to the audience for questioning, you know, when I look at bio, I see, you know, what Judith is telling us is medium SMEs. You know, what kind of support do you need now that Judith is here, you know, KCIC is here? What kind of support do you need to make this happen? And more so also from, you know, Judy Gino here from UN Global Compact. What kind of support do you require? And this is not support to you, but also to other SMEs.
I'm even happy that Kenjan is here. So let me just give an example of electricity, because it's the first thing that came into my mind. For Kenjan and KPLC, I think the help that most SMEs would require from them is like a buyback scheme. I have seen a lot of people who've already installed solars in their businesses. People are trying to get greener energy, but most SMEs cannot afford the batteries because they are very, very expensive. It's very hard to invest in such batteries. The solar plants are already expensive, but the batteries are even more. So what happens is sometimes during sunny days, the excess electricity goes back into the grid, but you can't ever get it back. Like, there's no incentive for you having a solar plant, getting more energy, it going back to the grid. When it comes back, you still need to pay for that. So if KPLC and the whole energy fraternity would look at that, considering how expensive energy is right now, I think that would be a very big cost saving for the SMEs in general. To KCB and the banks, it's very hard for people to get financing. As he said, that there's a specific language. There are tons of documents that need to be filled. And when I say tons, I mean tons, literally. Some of these languages are legalese. Most SMEs can't even afford lawyers sometimes. So for them to even just go through this whole process, they'll probably give up in the middle. So for banks and financial institutions, I think from a personal level, from a personal perspective, I'd like them to share, to maybe train people on how to fill documents, train people on where these platforms are, because I think there's a lot of information that's missing in terms of who's going to finance what. But I believe that the banks are also trying, and I really commend the banks, because I've had KCB, I've also had ABSA, that they have KPIs on financing green projects. So now that there's already that, can we now go back to the people and train them on which bank is best to go to in terms of which project? So I feel like there's lack of knowledge when it comes to people in the SMEs, and that also applies to him. I've written down a few companies that I didn't know that are green, so I will definitely read more on that. I only know Coco Networks. It's amazing that there's this platform that I didn't know. So yeah, this is a good platform that I get to know about this. But for the banks and Kengen, that would be it. I think finally for me would be I'm very passionate about fuel, because I think that's where most of the emissions in companies come from. I had a conversation with someone who's very passionate about electric vehicles about 4 months ago, and our company was trying to purchase a few trucks, a few fuel efficient trucks. And I asked how much an electric vehicle is, and I already knew there is no way our company is going to invest in them. A truck that's probably 20,000 pounds in the UK, when it comes here, it's 45 to 50,000 pounds. The fact that we're saying SMEs, it means that these people don't have so much money, so they can't afford that. I'd really wish, and I believe that our company in general would wish that we'd have electric vehicles, but that's not an investment the company is able to afford. So if there's any way or any entrepreneur who's willing to start selling the vehicles in large scale, I would easily commit for my boss in this public platform that if they're affordable, then we can invest in that. So this means that since all our emissions, around 35% of our scope 1 emissions are due to the fuel, for personal vehicles, for trucks, if we'd get electric vehicles, then we'd be minus another 30% of our absolute scope 1 emissions. So in terms of electric vehicles, I think that would be a very good conversation starter for people to look into. Maybe the banks investing, and people and the government, to be precise, making it easier for people who want to have electric vehicles, electric motorbikes, for them to have them.
So kind of enabling environment need to be created for these things to happen. And thanks, Rosalie, for that. And also reminding the banks that the way they used to look at us when we were kids, or they used to look at our parents and asking many, many forms, they need to move beyond that and stop asking for a lot of information. We use technology. Now, I open it up to the audience for questions, and I would suggest that you say your name and the organization that you're presenting. Well, I can see many hands. Which one do we start with? Let's start with the green one, representing green, and then we can go back to that end. So do we have some mics? So we'll take them in bunches of 3.
Thank you so much for the very brilliant presentation and the talks from the panel. My name is Rose Harriet from the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. The first 2 days we've had very candid conversations on the panels, and for that reason I'd like to ask this question. There has been a lot of controversy on carbon trading. Those in support of it, like the brilliant panelists we have over there, say it is measurable and efficient and helps the system. But then we have advocacy groups who look at it as a greenwashing system for cleaning up the detrimental emissions. Could we have this demystified from an expert point of view with the people we have at the front? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Then we can go in there. We have 2 questions there.
Thank you. My name is Felgona. I'm from Kenya Revenue Authority. I'm asking these questions as Felgona Atil. So now, my first...
Sorry, did you say you are from KRA?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Continue.
The questions are as an individual, at an individual capacity. I've been here for the last 3 days, and I'm seeing a missing link. However, the theme that we have is very much in line with what we're discussing. we are having business models around sustainability. Where is the individual model around it? How do I come in as Felgona Atieno Jim? And I think that is where the aspect of awareness comes in. That is where we have that link of, oh, the consumer is not aware. So I think we need to think about that and see how we can have it, because we are doing it up here and we're having this link. The people who are coming up with these weights are us at individual level. So I think we need to have an individual model. Number two, I think sustainability is expensive. I am a client of Bio. I love your products, but they're not cheap. They're not cheap. And you also said the electric vehicle is not affordable. So how do we get the consumers to start embracing this? We are living on a shoestring budget. So clearly, if I go to the supermarket, I love your product, but how many people can afford that? Can afford to buy those products. I also think we need to look, the reason why sustainability will be expensive is because we need to look at the whole value chain. We need to look at the whole value chain and then see then how do you make it easier for people to embrace it at individual level. I also think one of the things that is ailing sustainability discussion is that unless it comes from the top, and that is what Unilever was saying, it's very difficult even for institutions to integrate it as a form of business. And that is why we are having it at, and mostly I think it's private sector that is embracing it as a business model. When you go to the government side, it's not, because at leadership level, I don't know, the president is talking about it, but the foot soldiers, I don't know whether they are seeing what the president is seeing. So I think in terms of advocacy, as she said, we also need to look at that. Sustainability will work when it is embraced at the top. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's at the back. Well, no, sorry, just behind her there.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the panel and the robust discussions given to us. I'm Onyango Olang. I have a 3-month-old startup, social enterprise startup called Green and Rich Sites, based in Kisumu. And I just want to ask some simple questions. I would also want to appreciate that this is the best kind of a forum I've seen that has attempted to make clear about the issue of carbon credit trading. But now, if I'm coming down there from the grassroots, or what we call in Kenya mashinani, as Daktari, the moderator, was saying about his mom now using biogas, and that is really a sustainable way of cooking. How do we explain? Because I'm seeing high-pitched language, which you need to disambiguate, deconstruct, and how do I tell them down there? This is how we measure carbon credits, and at what value? Because every commodity in the market has a value. So if I'm carrying a pen in my hand, what is the value of this pen? So if I've generated this kind of carbon credit, then how much does it cost? Because like my theory will change with my organization is I want to see reduction of burning of sugarcane leaves remaining that are denying the farmers the fertility of the soil. At the same time, they have cows that would want to see the cow dung used for biogas. So if this is done, and they are doing this, how do they measure what they have done and what does it cost? Because I think if they know that, then it would incentivize them even to do more. So I would really humbly ask if you could deconstruct it. The language can become, as she said, the language is high pitched. In the arena of content creation, we call it high pitched language. If it can come lower, then lastly, there seems to be a comparability aspect in this. Like I'm reducing carbon emissions, so I should be then accumulating some carbon credits. I've planted trees. So if I start today, then how do you measure with what I've been doing in the past? Where do you start so that you can say, from this time on, I'm starting to accumulate carbon credits? Thank you. I believe probably I'm clear. Thank you.
No, for sure, the message from Kisumu City is very clear. And for James, I think there we are talking about methodology. We are talking about methodology, and he'll try to explain to us about the methodology. Let's take the last one, so that then we can take those four together.
Thank you, Dr. Hari, and congratulations to KCIC on the good job you're doing in supporting nascent businesses, especially those that are climate smart, are predominantly youth-led and youth-founded. My concern, however, is as we talk about the 3,500 businesses and startups that are already within your radar, there is yet another huge unaccounted for population of young people and grassroots women who are either involved in enterprises or not-for-profit ventures that are contributing towards the net zero agenda, especially on the carbon reduction and emissions. How then do we make it possible? Because when SMEs, which are more structured, when medium enterprises, for that matter, that are getting into the space are not yet converting their credits into financing and capital, how do we include the forgotten bottom millions? My name is Philip Pande from 4BM. Thank you.
4BM is forgotten
bottom millions.
Thank you so much. Finally, let's take the first round. Sorry, I keep on adding these numbers. The last one.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Lamp. My question is to...
Which organization?
From EcoFriends. EcoFriend is waste management company who operated in South Sudan. And I'm asking it on the side of private sector. And it is direct to the KCB representative, Madam. We have KCB in South Sudan. And you really talk some beautiful ideas on what you have done and some of the things that you are looking at to fund. But in South Sudan, KCB, I think it has a different agenda, because every time you approach them, they will tell you we are looking at a housing project. My question is there integration of your policies? Or you're only the policies you apply in Kenya are different that you apply in other regions? I really need to know that. Second, you make it so hard in South Sudan for young people to get loans, to the extent that you say some of these, regardless what you bring on the table, it mean like a land title, to act as a grantee, you refer everything unless it is approved in the headquarters in Nairobi. So you make it so hard for these private sectors to access finances. So how are you looking at this? Is there integration policies that you are going to apply under this in finance? Thank you.
Right, thank you. I think Judith, that is about whether it's the group or whether we're talking about KCB Kenya. So friends, we have all those questions. Who want to go first? Judith, maybe you deal with that question of group versus Kenya.
So I think one thing we have to appreciate is that for KCB, we are an indigenous bank. Therefore, we had, of course, to create the group structure. And so whatever is in group is expected to be aligned to all other subsidiaries. So that is how it's supposed to work. So we, of course, we have banks, we have the insurance, we have the investment, and of course, we have the wealth. So for the purpose of South Sudan, I know they have had challenges, especially when they had their war. If I can remember well, was it 2013, 2014, or 2015? During that time, and I know it has not stabilized. So their lending has not been similar to what the other countries are doing. Because remember, we're also looking at what is happening in the local country, the laws and everything, and whether, of course, this is shareholder money. So we also have to make sure that the shareholder money is also managed well. So I think I'll be here, so if you can give me your contacts, then I can be able to follow up and really find out what is happening there, so that I can be able to give you guidance. Otherwise, all our policies are expected to be rolled out in all the 7 markets in which you operate. And all the 7 markets, of course, will have a plan, because not all of them can do everything at the same time. Remember, like things to do with sustainability and climate change, I think the country that has adopted it through regulator is Kenya and Tanzania. So the other countries have not yet adopted that. So, of course, they do have the policy, but it may take time. But what we are doing with the other countries is to prepare them, so that when the regulator then enforces it, it becomes easier for them to embrace, and it's not a problem. So it is supposed to be, well, I mean, whatever we do from the group, it's supposed to be adopted by all across all markets. But of course, we do expect sometimes there could be issues, and so we can be able to deal with that one as we get a case. But all countries are supposed to be adopted sustainability. All the capacity building is done across the markets, and of course embraced with KPIs also across the market. Of course, out of that 25%, if you look at it, every country has a contribution towards that 25%. So each one of them has a KPI to contribute towards that 25%. So that is why I'm saying, because it is a KPI, everybody knows that they have a role to play, especially from the business, the retail, our corporate, our insurance, to be able to make sure that the green lending comes to 25%.
Okay, I think let's go to Joseph and that question about, the forgotten. Did you say the forgotten billions?
Yes, thank you. I'll deal with the 2 questions. One about the so-called forgotten, and then the second is about advocacy for sustainability. But let me start with the specific question around what KCIC is doing to support people at the very grassroots level. As I mentioned before, the reason for decentralization, for setting up offices at the grassroots, was basically that, to ensure that we get as many people as possible from the grassroots joining the KCIC family and benefiting from our services. Now, I think the issue Philip raised is if we only go for the formal businesses. That's actually not true. When we onboard you at the very beginning, we don't really worry about your legal structure. And so if you look at the people we onboard, we have individuals, we have CBOs, community-based organizations, we have cooperatives, we have community CSOs, community service organizations. So we have all these organizations basically joining us. Once you join us, that is when we do what's called a gap analysis, basically figure out what is holding you back, so that holding you back from going to the next level, and so that then we can be able to tailor our support to you, to your needs. At that point is when now we begin to have a conversation as to whether you should now move from whatever structure you are, whether you're an individual, a cooperative, or a CBO, to probably a limited liability company, or that sort of structure. The reason we do that is basically to ensure that you can be able to access funding post KCIC, because lots of organizations, if you are a business, they want to ensure that there is a bit of separation between the individual and the business, so that then the business can be run on a proper corporate governance principle. And that means you need to be formalized. But otherwise, I think to answer your question, yes, we are at the grassroots. I think I mentioned the offices where we are. You don't have to be a formal business. You just need to have a very good and innovative idea around technologies that support the fight against climate change. And currently we are focusing on 5 areas. We are focusing on agriculture, we are focusing on water, we are focusing on waste management, we are focusing on renewable energy, we are focusing on commercial forestry. So as long as you have an idea around those areas, it should not matter where you are within this country, wherever you are, just get to us, look out for a call for proposals, send in your proposal to be evaluated. If you qualify, you will certainly be supported, as it were. And it will not matter whether at that point you are an individual or you have another form, we'll be able to support you. With respect to the whether we are speaking to government, because I think that's the question that Philgona raised, that at individual level there seems to be a bit of focus on sustainability, but at official level there's a bit of disconnect. I think I need to mention that as KCIC we have a policy and advocacy program, because the enterprises that will support will not succeed unless there's an enabling environment. And so each of our program has a policy and advocacy component which works with government officials, be they national or county, to create an enabling environment, and then using evidence from the enterprises we've supported before to be able to influence policy, influence legislation, to make it better for business. Actually, as I speak right now, my colleagues are doing training for county government officials in Kisii and Eldoret. So I have 2 teams already out there basically just working on this. The idea is to ensure that government officials basically understand the challenges of the business are going through and create proper policies. You know, usually the challenge we have is that regulations or ideas are always lagging innovation. People are innovative, they're always moving ahead, and then government does not have the proper structures to be able to support those innovations. So we do this to bridge that gap and ensure that these innovations survive. Thank you.
All right. Before I come to Rosalie talking about the pricing for bioproducts, maybe James, you can talk a little bit about the methodology and also
greenwashing.
Try to help Rose to understand about carbon credits and what it means and the advocacy which is out there.
All right. Thank you, Dr. So Onyango, I think the issue of how do we communicate to local community is a big question that we need to try to address. But looking at a simple carbon project like the clean cooking, you can be able to explain in the sense that the wood that you will otherwise use if you are not using a clean cooking methodology, the difference between what you will use in a business as usual vis-a-vis what you will use when you use a clean cooking technology. One, the quantity of the wood fuel that you will use will reduce with the clean technology, so you can be able to quantify in terms of the biomass that is reduced. Secondly, one of the benefits of clean cooking that applies to the rural community is the issue of co-benefits, the indoor air pollution, which causes health issues. So that's another benefit that you can be able to enumerate when you implement clean cooking. In respect of where do we start, for carbon projects you start, the start date is defined. You cannot go backwards, you start from where you are, in the sense that you have to define. The methodologies require you to define and communicate where you are starting when you're implementing a carbon project. So all these, like we said, defined by methodologies and procedures to be able to safeguard these carbon markets, so that they are able to be believable. They should be able to be verified, and a third party can confirm that indeed what you are saying truly happened. So there is need for awareness creation to the communities, including the benefits, like Dr. Mungai was talking about what his mom got as a benefit. there is need for that engagement to be able to communicate clearly that this is a project that is going to benefit you, not only by the fact that you've been given a clean cooking solution, but the additional benefit that is accrued from utilization of that particular technology. With what Rose mentioned about the controversy with carbon markets, we go back to climate change. Do we believe that climate change is real? Okay, that's the question that we start from. If you look at Kenya, in the current situation, how many drought seasons have we had? Is it associated with climate change? So definitely the answer is yes, and the International Panel on Climate Change has shown us clearly from science that climate change is happening. If we don't intervene and take action, there is likely to be consequence. Apart from the refugees from war, we are likely to have climate refugees in future if we are not able to address some of the causes of climate change. So over the last few years, there have been concerns with respect to the carbon markets. Some could be from lack of appreciation of the process. If you consider the process that I mentioned to you earlier with the regulated markets, look at the rigorous process that we have to go through to be able to quantify. The project developer claims that he has reduced X carbon credits. A third party will come and interrogate whether what you are saying is true or false. And that's not enough. The executive board of the UNFCCC will do a completeness check, will verify what the auditor did and what the project developer has submitted as emission reductions. So there could be a few from the voluntary markets in the sense that probably the rigorous process has not been followed up, but those could be isolated cases. If you were to consider in wholesome nature the carbon markets, there is a lot of integrity that has been embedded into the process. If you look at the whole chain of quantifying and verifying carbon credits. So those are my comments. Thank you.
All right, thanks, thanks, James. And finally, to Rosary, in regards to the question about cost.
So I'd like to add something on Rose's question. I completely understand why some people would think that sequestering carbon is greenwashing. So if you continue doing what you do as usual while not trying to reduce your absolute CO2 simply because you have a way out to buy carbon somewhere else, then I'd also consider that greenwashing. Because the whole point of sustainability is to continuously grow your business in such a way that you are treating people better, releasing less into the environment, and while making profits in the process. So I completely get that aspect and why some people think it's greenwashing. However, we also need to appreciate that sustainability is not a one-off project. You're continuously growing into that. So while you reduce your absolute CO2, then you can also sequester that to someone who's doing a more environmental friendly business. So that's how I view it, but I completely understand why they think part of it is greenwashing. Now, to the question the question started as sustainability is expensive. And I also get how that looks like it. So I'd first like to tackle this from a manufacturing perspective. Some sustainability projects, their initial investments are quite pricey, but their worth is amazing by the end of the day. I'm going to give an example. If you buy a solar panel today, the initial investment is quite expensive, but if you manage it well and clean the panels well, then you are going to reduce your energy, the energy you're getting from the grid by 20 to 30% from the projects that I've seen. So by the end of the day, it becomes, there is a return to it. And I think people are not having a more frequent conversation on the financial perspective when it comes to sustainability. If you save on water, you're saving on money. And if you invest in your people, there's no greater investment than investing in your people. If you pay your people well, treat your people well, then that means that the business is going to last. Just as Mr. Sunday said, invest in people and the business is going to last. I am sorry if I have paraphrased that statement. To why bio is expensive, I don't like saying that bio is expensive. Phrase it, for bio you pay all your money, there is value for your money. So when you buy bio, that's value for your money. So I'll go back to the start. Bio is a dairy company. We source our milk from specific suppliers whom we've invested a lot in. That means partly financial investment, and we also have extension services that go to those people. So we do this because we want to make sure that whatever milk we're getting from the suppliers is good milk. We do not want to expose our consumers to antibiotics. We do not want to expose our consumers to an unhealthy level of M1 aflatoxin. We also do not want to expose our consumers to high levels of bacteria in the milk and all that. So we pay a premium amount of money to our farmers because we understand that they need to also invest for them to get this quality milk. If anyone in this room has taken bio milk, you know that we sell quality and only quality. That's what we pride ourselves in. So if a farmer is going to give us milk with more protein, milk with more fat, milk with less total plate count, which is the bacteria in the milk, milk with as low as 20 to 50 ppt of aflatoxin in milk, considering that the limit, EU limit is like 500. So if someone is going to do all this, it means they are testing their feeds, they are getting their feeds from the right places, which means the feeds are not cheap. They also need to invest in chillers for the milk not to be contaminated and for there not to be a lot of bacterial growth. Chillers are expensive. They also need to invest in people because we are big on having knowledge of how our suppliers are also treating the people in the farm and the people who generally supply to us. So we will not take milk from someone who's overworking their people. We will not take milk from people who are treating their cows wrongly, because we believe a happy cow produces good milk and more milk. So considering all these things and the initial investment that the farmers have to make for them to give us this quality milk, then we pay them a premium price. When it comes to the factory, we pride ourselves in that we have been paying from around 2019, a living wage to the people who work for us. So as people in the room may know, the minimum wage in Kenya for general workers is around 15,200, 201. Life is very expensive. So we pride ourselves in not paying the minimum wage as the regulations demand us to do, but we pride ourselves in paying people a livable wage so that when people come into the company, they are proud of working for us. Someone with money in the pocket and they can afford their food and pay for their kids' school fees and get insurance and do all these things, that's a happy person. And happy people thrive. And happy people do good for the business. So when we put all this into consideration, that ends up in where bio is in the market. But then that's quality. That's the people who are involved in the processes are happy and they are paid well. So,
yeah.
Yes.
Very well articulated that you get value when you buy bio. And I also like the fact that they are happy cows. In fact, one of the points, and when you get the slides, one of the points that Wagema was talking about, was the risks that businesses see in the next 2 years, and then there was a long term which was 10 years. It was very convenient to see in 2 years the highest risk was cost of living. And I think that's how our friend is talking about. But when you go 10 years, then it becomes climate issues. Indeed, friends, we have gone through this journey. I think I want to terminate this session at this point, but I can't before I go back to the theme of today. And especially the theme which was about leveraging carbon market to accelerate climate action. Now this becomes a contradiction. When I hear that question that was coming from Rose, to try and articulate, would this be an option to help us to deal with climate action? But I just want to leave an analogy here where we started. Now assume a bank like KCB, which again have committed to be net zero by the year 2040 or 2050, Judy? 2050. Now for them to become net zero, what exactly does it mean? That business can never get to net zero. Well, cannot be able to reduce their emissions to zero. So basically what they need to do is to be efficient as much as possible, but they will have a residue carbon. That residue carbon, they need to figure out who can sell it to them so that then they can come to net zero. Now that person who is selling it could be my mother, could be a mother who is using biogas system. And provided we give those technologies to them, they will be able to help us to reduce the effect of climate change, and therefore, truly, carbon markets, if well articulated and implemented, become a solution as part of the climate action. Friends, if you want more assistance when it comes to climate action, of course, UN Global Compact is here. Taka Nimari is also here to help us, to navigate and to see the opportunities that are presented. And a summary of those opportunities, listening to the panel, is about revenues. We can be able to make tons and tons of money, well illustrated by Unilever. It's also about cost management. I had 345 kilowatts of solar at Bio. Of course, net metering will be a good thing because then they can create money coming from KPLC. But I also think risk management is another element. And not forgetting that if we do sustainability, we will get that social license to operate. 63% of Kenyans are telling us in the year 2025, they want to buy from sustainable companies. What you do with that information, friends, is up to you. Let's put hands together for my panel, and we thank you very much for being part of this. Thank you.
Let's also put our hands together for a very able moderator, Dr. Edward Mungai. Thank you so much for leading such a highly knowledgeable conversation. I'm sure you'll agree with me that that was quite an insightful panel discussion. All right, I'd like you to stand up. Would like you to take a photograph. Madam Mary, please come and join us on stage.
Yeah, we can also have NSC as well join. All the keynote addresses.
All right, let's appreciate our panel and guests as well as the conveners of today's sessions, that is Global Compact Network Kenya, of course the United Nations Global Compact, and the Nairobi Securities Exchange.
Absolutely.
All right, MC, what's next?
Just before I tell people what's next, I know this has been a long sitting session, but it's been a bit amazing. It was interesting. I don't know how Joseph felt being interviewed by his former boss, but that was a good one. That was a good one. We want to take a quick break. we had intended not to actually have it, but we noticed there was a serious request for it. So let it be quick, then we're going to come back, have just a keynote address, and then wrap the session up. And that will be it for the debate. There's something else still holding on, because after lunch, for those of you who are going to remain behind, there'll be something. There'll be something that I'll disclose only at that particular time. Don't smile like that, because I'll only announce it then. So yeah, that's it. So I think it's break time now.
All right, enjoy your tea. Let's see you here in exactly 15 to 20 minutes.
Yes, sure. Let's go.
of the conference. I'd also like to request those of you that are at the back, please come and join us at the front so we can get some quorum up here. If you're at the back, I'd like to request you politely to please come towards the front seats.
Tunaomba wale ambao wameketi kule nyuma mje hapa mbele ya hizi kamera ndio tuwe pamoja. Na in Kiganda we are saying ndo kujeni kidogo. Thank you. So you want me here? But anyway. But what? No. Like these guys, I like the fact that using the dogs take guys when they had trouble, I would go and diagnose at the lab. You know, that people sometimes think that we're just. It's good to know these things, but we need to know that we want to take light. You see, what he is saying is very important. Yeah, look at it. Yeah, so that means you're now previewing a note. Right? Yeah. That's my notes. Like, yeah. They better be nice. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Please, if you're out there, we are asking you to kindly walk in, and our assistants can kindly ask the people to walk in. We want to wrap up this session with our keynote address, and our guest is in the house. But before then, we have a request from the digital team that, Terian, I'm being told the digital activity is a bit low today, and I think we may need to do something. Why don't you do this? Can we all be up standing for a second? Just everybody stand, just like comforters here with Terian, the way we are, just for the sake of it. Tunaomba kwa hisani yenu kwa Kitanzania msimame. Yes, are you ready for that? So, would like you to do this. Turn to the person sitting next to you, the one with the highest quality of a phone, want you to take a selfie. And if you're just alone by yourself, walk to someone and do that. Don't even ask for permission. I just gave you that. All right?
This is the chance for...
Yeah, this is the chance
that
for...
That phone that's called like a fruit.
Yeah.
It's your chance to show off.
Yeah. Please do that. Oh, yeah, like we mean it. Like, I'll tell you what to do with it. Well done. Yeah, you what? You if you have a phone like mine, whose screen is not as good, use Terian's. I mean, a neighbor that has a better one. Ready? Good.
Okay, have we done it? I hear somebody saying they have never taken a selfie. This is your chance to acclimatize better with technology.
Yeah, Terian, I have a request. You know, Daktari doesn't have anyone to take a selfie with. Do you mind just one? Because, so for the sake of inclusion. Actually, we talk about it in SDGs. Thank you so much for that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please tweet. And this is the hashtag that we want you to tweet with. Takatakani Mali, and also hashtag waste is wealth. Just say something about your key, some of the addresses that have been there. We had an amazing panel on carbon credits. Just speak something that you know was your key takeaway. It would be very nice for us to have those engagements. Let the world know that this is happening, right, Teria?
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be just on Twitter. Please share on LinkedIn. Please share on Facebook. Whichever other social media platform that is of choice for you.
Instagram. Tinder.
I don't know
sorry,
that one.
I was just checking. Anyway, you can have your seat as you do that. All right, we were still doing selfies here. So Terry Ann, we are about to get to the next session, and I believe the house now is getting in. So can we ask the other people to kindly walk in? If you're seated right behind these cameras you've seen, we are requesting you to kindly come and occupy seats that are in front of you. If you know the cameras are behind you, it means you might miss in action a few things. So we are requesting you to kindly move forward a little. It will help us at least have this final quorum that we need to have. At this moment, we want to have a keynote address, and I request the team to kindly put up the podium, just in case our guests may want to use the podium. We may need it up on the podium. So kindly come and this is the stage. Yes, the podium on the stage. So if you could kindly help us do that, that would be very good. And we want to understand on matters government side when it comes to NEMA. What are they doing, especially on this subject of the day? So as this is being said, I just hope you've done your tweets and you've selected the best picture. I'll be reading a few of your takeouts of what you're posting and what you're saying. It would be nice to do that. Yeah? Yeah, absolutely. The famous tweet will get something today. I see tea was very nice. I see people still streaming in. I don't want our keynote address to start when people are still out. So if you're there out, we're asking you to kindly get in. So that at least we can have that session. In the meantime, tech team, I hope you can pass over the pointer as well to our guest speaker, so that I understand there's a presentation to be given in. And yeah. All right. How was the previous session, the panel discussion on carbon credits, guys? Was it exciting? Was it? Yeah, you can make money. You can make money like Dr. Edwards, was it auntie or mom? Wow. If Dr. Edwards' mom can make money on carbon credits, sembuse wewe. That means, why can't you? All right, so this moment, ladies and gentlemen, I want to request Dr. Jasper Omwenga, the Principal Climate Change Adaptation Officer, National Environmental Management Authority, to kindly come to this stage, and he has a keynote address to give us. And then that shall be followed with our closing remarks. Let's put our hands together for him as he takes the stage. Karibu sana, Dr. Jasper Mwenga. The floor is yours.
Should be on this side. Good, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. That is my name, Omwenga Jasper. I work with the National Environment Management Authority here in Kenya. First, as an environmental research scientist and climate change officer. NEMA, most of you have heard about it. Maybe I'll just take you through what we do, and then those are the other issues that I want to talk about. When I got this invitation, I looked at this waste is wealth, very interesting area, takataka ni mali, very interesting, and so I'd like to share what we do as the authority in those particular areas. So that is first, our mandates It is a government corporation established by the Act of Parliament. And then our mandate is general supervision and the coordination of all matters related to the environment. We are the principal arm of the government in the implementation of policies, including anything on waste and anything related to the environment. And our dream is to become a world-class environmental management authority. In Africa, we've been recognized. We are doing so well. We've received several awards, including one from UNEP. Then we are there to ensure that we live in a clean and healthy environment. We are trying our best. Now, in the climate change space, what we do, we monitor, investigate, and report on assigned duties, on duties assigned to private and public entities. That is duties given to us by the Climate Change Act of 2016. We are also supposed to ensure that all environmental assessments have that aspect of climate change risk and vulnerability analysis. So that is what we are also supposed to do. We are also a clearing house for CDM activities. It was mentioned here in the morning, to ensure that environmental and social safeguards are well captured in these CDM projects. We are an accredited body on Matters Adaptation Fund. It has come from you that issues of financing some of those projects are a challenge. And so these are some of the areas that NEMA can work you with on. We also accredited under Jeff. So besides that, the issues of environmental and social safeguards, we ensure that all projects that are being undertaken in the country, they meet our environmental and social safeguard standards. Now, when it comes to waste, dealing with anything waste, it is a requirement that you are registered with NEMA before you embark on any project that finally is going to reach that level of trading in carbon credits. You have to be registered with us. Very simple process. It is not hard. And nowadays it is online. We also do enforcement of waste management regulations. We have the solid waste regulations, the waste management regulations of 2006. We have the water quality regulations of also 2006. And then there is the most recent act after the waste management policy of Kenya. There is the most recent one that came. We will also do the waste management, the enforcement of that, the requirements that are contained in that act. Now, I repeat on the issues of carbon markets because I saw it's an area of interest. And then finally, I'll be talking about waste and these carbon markets. It is a trading system mechanism where carbon credits and carbon offsets are traded. They are bought, they are sold. And so what is this carbon credit? A carbon credit is created when an equivalent of 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide is prevented from entering the atmosphere. So internationally, those names are used interchangeably. Sometimes you'll hear of a certified emission reduction. You will hear of an emission reduction unit. You will hear of a verified emission reduction. So we use those terms interchangeably. So compliance markets have been mentioned here. Compliance markets where in the, institutions companies have been given emission caps. So if you go beyond that, then you're breaking the law. In Kenya, we are not yet there. It is voluntary, but then the Climate Change Act is being amended now so that we can see whether the compliance market can be rolled out in the nation. So voluntary markets, it was mentioned here, like the Delta Airlines, for them to comply, they buy from individuals, institutions that are producing this so that they can comply, not for legal purposes. Most consumers are increasingly becoming aware of their carbon footprints. And so they want to meet the obligation of reducing the carbon, the amount of carbon that they generate to the atmosphere. So I'll also be talking about Article 6, that is where, of the Paris Agreement, where the carbon markets are handled. Then in Kenya, we have the national determining contributions. So our contribution towards reducing the amounts of carbon dioxide, the amount of carbon or greenhouse gases into the atmosphere by 2030. So we've committed ourselves to reducing that by 32%. So compliance markets are created and regulated by mandatory, national, regional, or international carbon reduction regimes. Voluntary markets function outside the compliance markets, and that one I've explained. Now, when it comes to reporting on greenhouse gases, those are the areas that we report. Parties report what the greenhouse gases, the amounts of greenhouse gases generated within a party, within a country, under those categories. We have the industrial processes sector, we have the agricultural sector, energy sector, industry and related product, that is IPPU. Then we have land use, land use change, and forestry, and then waste. Now, our reporting showed that waste, waste contributes about 2% of the greenhouse gas that we produce within the nation. Now, this might give us a false implication. It is grossly underestimated because of the tier under which we report, and then even the way the data collection was done. So, but still, even with that figure, that's not a very small amount. We need to do something so that we can be able to participate within the carbon market. Emission baseline projection for Kenya, that is how it is going from 1995, the levels where they were, down here all the way to 2030. That is the projection that is given, that a huge amount of these greenhouse gases come from agriculture, then from energy, then going that way. So those are the graphs. When it comes to greenhouse abatement, like if you are talking about, these are the abatement potentials in every sector, but I want to go on to waste area. And so we see how we can generate this carbon credit. We have we have what we call the business as usual scenario, that if we continue doing things the way we are doing, then the greenhouse gases are likely to go up that way. You are seeing the red dotted line. But if we put some measures in every sector, let's take the waste sector. If we put some measures, then that graph, after that project start point, then we are going to reduce the amount of carbon or greenhouse gases emitted to the atmosphere. Now, that net carbon benefit is what we call, is what can be turned into the carbon credits, which can participate in the carbon market. Sorry. So, in Kenya, we are not talking of things that do not exist. Those are the various carbon projects which we have. We have, under the Clean Development Mechanism, we have 20 projects with 187 component activities, and that is where you can get information. Under the gold standard, we have 53 registered. Under the verified carbon standard, we have those projects, and this is just within Kenya. Under the Plan Vivo standard, we have also those projects which are registered in the nation. In East Africa, we have also those projects, but now let's look at that circle. These projects, that is how they are distributed. We have projects under afforestation, we have under purification, we have under the run of the river, or that is hydrology, under reforestation, and then we have others which are also covered on their side. So improved cook stoves, we have run of the river hydro projects, water purification, etc. In East Africa again, those ones under, we have 295 under the voluntary carbon markets. Under the gold standard, that is in East Africa, we have that number of projects. Vera, that is verified carbon standards. Under that, we have those projects, including agriculture, forestry, and other land use. Plan Vivo, also we have 6 projects which have been able to generate 2.7 million credits. Now, the carbon market is governed by that Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, and Article 6.2, which describes the cooperative approaches. 6.4 establishes the centralized crediting mechanism, and it sets the modalities, rules, and procedures. Now, this is where we were told that sometimes it is very difficult to start a carbon a project under to put a project under the carbon scheme. So the modalities, rules, and procedures, that is where they are well spelled. Then Article 6.8, which recognizes the non-market approaches, including the voluntary approaches. So Article 6, piloting and readiness, so we also have, that is a bilateral agreement kind of mechanism between Kenya and Japan. Under that, we have 3 projects in Kenya. We also have the COSIA, which involves the airlines. And under that, we have 309 CDM projects, which under COSIA, and Kenya participates in the COSIA pilot phase, participated in COSIA's pilot phase of 2021 to 2023. So all these are governed by the Constitution of Kenya, which provides a clean and healthy provision for that clean and healthy environment. Kenya ratified the UNFCCC and the Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement, and it commits to participate in these carbon markets. Kenya is also developing a national carbon market framework that will guide carbon markets. Later I'll be talking about, we had that the policy framework that guides these carbon markets in Kenya is not yet fully developed, and so Kenya is currently doing a national carbon market framework that will guide these markets. We have a tremendous experience in both compliance and voluntary markets, and so Kenya participates in this CDM to promote sustainable development, which is consistent with national laws. The CDM projects, I've said, it has those number of projects, and one of them, our colleague from Geothermal, tested on what they have been able to do. And then under the voluntary markets, there are those number of projects registered under different standards. Those ones I've mentioned. For the operational projects, CDM has assisted in the transfer of environmental sound technologies. Those are some of the core benefits that come with these carbon projects. Internationally, there is a transition towards the dispensation of the Paris Agreement and in the implementation of national determined contributions. So we've been able to transition from Kyoto to, actually that is what is happening. We are transitioning from the Kyoto Protocol to Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Voluntary carbon markets will continue operating, and Kenya endeavors to meet NDC targets, national determined contributions, while participating in these carbon markets. As we meet our targets of reducing the greenhouse gases we release to the atmosphere, also we are we participate in those markets, and then as we improve the environment within our nation. So therefore, Kenya must ensure established proper legal and policy framework, which we said is not yet fully developed, and it will provide guidance to the key players on the process of participating in carbon markets. The legal framework is underlying fundamental bedrock in unlocking bilateral engagements with potential partners and attracting investor confidence. Those are the benefits that we stand to get, that carbon markets have the potential to accelerate investments in mitigation and raising ambition. Then it will also provide additional revenue stream. And then there are many other core benefits that come with those, with the carbon projects. So key milestones to date: carbon markets roadmap for Kenya, November 22 to June 2023. That is what we are supposed to do. That we are supposed to do our carbon markets readiness assessment. This one is ongoing. We are doing a market analysis and identifying the potentials and the gaps. Capacity building is on in every sector in Kenya. And then analysis of legal framework, potential duplication and conflicts, carbon markets framework being developed, that one I mentioned. Then between January 2023 to June 2023, we are supposed to initiate the legal process of drafting amendments to the Climate Change Act. That one I said, currently our Climate Change Act is silent, is not very clear on issues of carbon markets, and so amendments are being drafted. Then drafting of subsidiary legislation to the amended act to enable us to operationalize it. Then after that, from November 20, it is a process that started November 2022 to June 2023. That is the implementation phase, so that we can be able to participate in this carbon market space. Operationalization of the proposed governance structures to be put in place. A lot is going on at the moment. The accreditation of auditors, development of carbon market infrastructure, and then capacity building. So that is briefly what is going on from the government side. That is all I had for you, and thank you for listening.
Let's appreciate him one more time with a round of applause. Thank you so much for that. And, you know, behind the scenes, we've been talking a lot about collaboration and what we can do, and there's been the government side of things. We want to as well tap into what you're doing and even look at how can we march together so that the government of the day is in support of just generally waste is wealth on the go. Thank you so much, Terian. So at this particular moment, as I promised you, we wanted to ensure that you have lunch in good time. Yeah, but guys of waste don't smile at that. But I'm just checking anyway. Yes. Anyway, so Mary is in the house. Mary would like to get your sentiments. Mary, for those of you who came in today, if at all there was any, is the founder and patron of Takataka Nimali. And if you just go out there, there is an amazing booth dubbed Ecoloop. Would like you to at least go interact with it, get to know what's happening. And as Mary is coming to the stage, there's some few other announcements I wanted to make here. Number one is that we are not going to just end after lunch. We are requesting you to kindly come back, not because there will be extra tea later on, but because we want to have that consortium of what are the things that we can take home, just sort of like a together conversation. So it would be nice to come and wrap it up together. It will be very short, straight to the point after lunch, so please make that date. Therefore, help me welcome Mary with a round of applause, please. Makofi tafadhali, asante sana.
I think I have no enough words to thank everyone for being with us, not just on day 1, day 2, and day 3. My co-conveners and my co-creators of the sessions. We have had 3 days of conversation, and what came up, or what those conversations have been, they have been on collaborations. Have you guys had collaborations? Partnerships. We've talked about data. We've talked about policies. The AWWS conference, I keep telling my team it was not an event. Because an event is where you go, you attend, you aid the event, and then you go home. So we are not going home today. Work begins today. Because we have had conversations and we know what needs to be done. If you remember on day 1 when we were talking about net zero, and somebody said that it's going to take us more than 100 years to achieve or to get into that objective of net zero. Do we want to stay with waste for 100 years? I believe no. What can we do so that we make sure that we are not getting into that 100 years? We said we set ourselves an objective of zero waste to the landfill, so that we make sure that our waste is where it is supposed to be. And where it is supposed to be is in the basket of wealth. We are saying waste is wealth. If we sort, separate, manage our waste, recover it, and convert it into wealth. We had different industries that are already converting waste into wealth. That was on day 1. Today we have even learned that we can convert our waste into carbon credits. And we had somebody from Kengen who talked about how they have made money from carbon credits. As long as we are taking care of our environment by reducing the carbon emission that we are omitting that. As AWWS, what next? What are we going to do? It's a regional conference. We had regional representation, and we have had conversations with our partners from across the region. So in the next, starting from, I think our nearest next is in September in Uganda. And Burundi said, can you come to Burundi before you go to Uganda? South Sudan said, can you come to South Sudan before you go to Burundi? So we are promising our regional partners, immediately after this, we are going to have a chain of workshops, because we have said it is a collaborative effort. We are building ecosystem of different stakeholders. So we'll be going around the region to build that ecosystem. What then is that ecosystem supposed to do? Is to lobby for the policies that we are saying that we need our government to work to help us, to give us an enabling environment. So we identify the stakeholders because they are there, we organize them, and we start another Takataka ni Mali movement in each and every country in our region. Africa Waste is Wealth is for Africa. Our first series was Eastern Africa, and this is what we have done. So by next year, we are going into another block of Africa. It could be West Africa, it could be South Africa. We have partners in West Africa, we have partners in South Africa, so we shall weigh and see where it is that we can go next. We also have had innovations. You have had people talking about what they are doing. We had somebody from Uganda who said that the Uganda Association of Manufacturers, they are also looking into how they can embrace the extended producer responsibility. They are benchmarking with what Kenya is doing, and those are some of the initiatives that we are going to continue looking into. We had a conversation about money, and I'm happy with the gentleman from South Sudan. He's asking the hard questions. You give us all these good stories with smiling faces, but actually, where is the money? Why are we not being able to access that money? We had bankers in the room. I can still see a few bankers in the room. We are talking about green financing. We are talking about climate financing. One of the other agenda that I know our governments are pushing is in SME development and scaling up. I proudly say that I'm the chair for SME for the East Africa Business Council. So we are asking, the banks came up with products for SME. We have SMEs accounts. Is it the high time that we start having green accounts? And we come up with criteria of what is that green account? What does it require us as the SME to open those green accounts, so that if you see me with a green account, you are able to understand that I am interested in the green financing, I'm meeting the criteria, and we can make it easy to access that money. You can de-risk me with some of the metrics that we have been having those conversations. Those are the things that we are thinking. Somebody even said the development partners are giving us a lot of money. And I remember Ignatius from Rwanda asking, why don't we come with the Takataka ni Mali fund? Because we are saying the collectors can benefit with simple little amount of money to simply just help them to organize. Those are conversations that we'll continue having. We have talked about data. That the reason why we are not having access is because we are not well organized, we don't have data to even show whatever it is that we are doing. As Takataka ni Mali, we have just launched a solution that we are calling EcoLoop. EcoLoop is about data, so that we can have traceability of your waste. We can be able to measure the impact that you're creating for your waste by making sure that your waste doesn't go to the landfill. It then means that we can be able to unlock most of those barriers that we are talking. Not just finance, but also markets. You have heard today that our consumer is informed. Our consumer will make decision into also how you're contributing into taking care of the environment as you're making products for them, and also what it is that you input in your products. We are careful, we are concerned that we do not want to deplete our environment. So there are several things that we have said, call for action, but I think one of the keynote speaker today said, we cannot make environment sense if we are not making economical sense and business sense. So it is upon us to go home and ask ourselves, how do we make economical sense and business sense as we are trying to make environment sense. We have all said that it takes all of us. The little contribution. Somebody yesterday gave an example and asked, how many of you had lunch? You remember that question? Who finished their food? And what she said is that food that you left on your plate is what that is contributing to the 67% of the organic waste that we have in our market. So the choices that we make, it doesn't take the government, it doesn't take Miringecho and Takataka ni Mali, it takes every one of us. Today somebody else has said, why not walk? We walk more, we keep fit, and we reduce the carbon emission. So let us analyze our culture, our behavior. I think it will begin from there. How is it that we are disposing our waste? Are we mixing it and then we throw it in a bag? I think now we are educated to understand the reason why we are asking that we separate it so that it is easy for the recycler to recycle it. And it doesn't get to the landfill because it is clean, it is not contaminated. The people who are handling it, you're also improving their health because the waste is not contaminated. The role of technology in processing. I've talked about the digital platform in processing. We've talked about maybe small machinery that our innovators can be able to take. We had somebody from India who showed us the India streets that looks like every one of our streets, the backyard of the estates where we say. So it is not just a problem in Kenya, it is a global problem. How can we learn from those who have done it before so that it doesn't take us that 100 years to get there? It doesn't take us as long as it took them to get. And this is what we are doing with the AWWS, Africa Waste is Health, to bring these innovations together so that we can be able to learn from them. Allow me to thank my partners, Alliance for Science, for giving us resources to enable us to have this conference. Transform, for giving us resources to even bring the people who we have in the room so that we can be able to have good conversation. GIZ, the UN Global Compact, UNDP, UNEP, the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, the KEPSA, KPMG, COAL, all the keynote speakers, all the panelists, and everybody who attended this conference. It is because of you that we have been able to have a conference that even on day 3, the room or the number that we targeted, we still have them. We will continue having this conference, and we have said it is because of that power of collaboration and partnership that we've been able to have a successful first series of the Africa Waste is Wealth. We'll go for lunch. We are hoping to come back and have a networking session with teas and cocktail. So for you, those who are thinking of going home, I don't know whether Maina has a cocktail. You know, every time I attend a conference, there's a cocktail. So Maina will be telling us after lunch whether we have anything that we are looking forward to. So thanks so much and feel most appreciated. And last but not the least, if you are not a partner for the Africa Waste is Wealth, at least make sure that you get back to us and become a partner. Not as an organization or an institution, but also as an individual, because we have all agreed that it is our journey for all of us together. Thank you, Maina.
Thank you so much, Mary. Let's appreciate Mary with a big round of applause for really being a vision bearer and ensuring this is happening. Mary, because of such a vision, I have to come and help you down. You know, let's appreciate it one more time with a round of applause. Thank you so much. You know, somebody said, when the boss says there is cocktail, who are you to say there is none? That was a saying by Wahenga. You guys know those people. But anyway, I'm trying to mean it here. And just to appreciate all of us. And for those of you who really cocktails mean nothing, lunch nothing, I don't know how many, but for the others, let's meet immediately after lunch. That's okay? I have one more announcement to make. I think there's lost and found something. It was supposed to come here. I think the conference was quite heavy and people were just sometimes, you know, the way when you're removing your jacket, you throw away wallets, money, everything else because of the intensity. So it's coming. I can see it coming. Intensity of the conversation. Yeah, I've seen amazing tweets. Have you seen people tweeting? Yeah, and I had promised someone might. I understand this is pure gold, and we know we are talking about recycling wealth. I mean. So if you lost this, please come see me aside, and come. Yes, kuja na risiti and see me nyuma ya tent. Yeah, it was checked. It's very pure. So I was just going through the hashtag, and I want to appreciate a few people who mean what we say. Who is Okwiri? Okwiri Wycliffe, where are you? Okwiri. That young man deserves a round of applause. Appreciate him. Yeah. I'll take you somewhere after this. See me after that. He's quite active when it comes to selfies and really talking about what's happening, you know? Yeah, well done for that as well. I wanted to see whether there's any other person who did that. Mary, I also saw your selfie. Thank you so much. At least you're quite there. For those of you who don't know what Twitter is, it's an app. You can download it anyway. Yeah, so we're going to go to have our lunch, and I understand if at all you're leaving, leave your tag at the registration desk. You know, we don't waste, remember? Yeah, this can be reused, and so we don't waste that, so leave it there, and then we shall come back, have your 6 course, then come back. No rush this time round, but we'll call you in. Thank you so much. Lunch is served downstairs. Let's go. Thank you.